Now, earlier we had heard somewhere between serious and critical. How much of a sigh of relief do you think this gives to see serious condition as opposed to critical?
Well, when you see the images of that vehicle, you're just glad that he's alive. I can't speak to the differences between those descriptions. Obviously, something less than critical is more encouraging than than that specific description. His agent Mark Steinberg has said that he's undergoing surgery. You're just sitting here thinking how many acts does he have, and this is another. We talked about having life as a 3-act play, and with Tiger Woods, there's multiple acts, more than 3, and so I'm just glad that he's alive, especially after seeing that footage, and hopeful that everything turns out okay in the surgery.
Yeah, looking at the aftermath of that crash certainly gives you goosebumps there. I want to bring in Alex Stone from ABC News Radio as well to just get the latest on what we know right now. Alex, what are we hearing from authorities at this point?
Well, and right now, Diane, I was just texting with a couple of them that they say this is very much under investigation right now, that they don't know a whole lot. We've been asking questions about what his state was at that time, and are there any signs of anything else possibly being involved? And they're saying that they don't know, that they are investigating this like they would any other major injury crash that is unfortunately fairly routine for police and firefighters, and that they're beginning to document it now and then go down the road as they normally would. But we know that when they got on scene, it was serious enough that the jaws of life had to be used, and then they had to cut him out of the vehicle.
And Alex, how worrisome is that aspect of it when you hear that someone had to be pried out of a car with the jaws of life?
Well, I mean, that always means that it is a bad crash, that they can't just roll up. We know the LA County Sheriff's Department was on scene first, and they were the ones who required and requested LA County Fire to respond. And the dispatch, the response is that the sheriff was already on scene, and that they can't walk up to the vehicle and say, all right, come with me, let's get out of here, or pull somebody out of a window, that it's going to be more severe than that. Then obviously it's a pretty bad crash. But there can be times where it can just be that they don't have access to get the person out, and that the person themselves, not necessarily in this case, but that they aren't that badly injured. We know here that at least his legs are injured, as you've been reporting, that he's in surgery right now, or was a short time ago. Sounds like that there were definitely some major injuries, but yeah, that they had to cut him out of there.
And Gene, what do you make of it when you look at this situation? So many now rooting and pulling for Tiger and hoping that he comes through this okay. And when you think back to how many other times his fans have been in that position and his loved ones have been in that position of hoping that he pulls through and seeing him pull through.
Well, I think Chris Brennan referenced it earlier. At this point, it's asking the question, will he play golf again, or will he be in this year's Masters, is almost laughable. I think at this point we're talking about can he live a daily life that's close to normal physically. Even before this crash, there was a question whether or not he'd be able to continue on. At least would he be able to play in the Masters? And if he was able to play at some point down the road, at what percent of Tiger Woods would we see? So I think we're talking about a guy who's, 45 years old and is battling all the demons of age that happen, and all the surgeries and all the injuries. And now you add this to the equation, and I think the dynamic changes from will he be at the Masters to will he just be okay? And I think the golf part of it now is almost inconsequential.
Yeah, of course. The chief concern right now is with his health, not with the future of his golf career. Alex, when you look at this investigation, how are authorities going about trying to piece this together?
Well, they're going the way that they normally would, in that they arrived on scene. They've got a vehicle that, and you've seen these pictures, that the vehicle on its side, it looks
Yeah, we're
like that it
watching them
rolled.
live right now.
Yeah, rolled probably several times, and it looks like the airbags deployed. And you'll see that they're already on scene right now documenting the distance of skid marks and pieces of the vehicle and whatnot. We know the scene is shut down. There's nobody in there, no residents, nobody like that. This is a windy area in Rancho Palos Verdes, and they've got to start documenting everything in there of what speed was he going. This car may have some of that detail on it in the computer system of the car. Did he brake? Did he do anything like that? Was he going too quickly down that road? And they'll interview him, assuming that he is in a state where he can talk. They will try to ask him what was going on. He was the only person in there. Doesn't seem like anybody else was around. If there are any other witnesses around who can talk about what they saw his vehicle doing, what the speed was, that would all help as well. But it's beginning to piece all of this together. Right now they're doing the on-the-scene work, looking at any skid marks, looking at the pieces of the vehicle that broke off, any trees that were knocked over, showing where the vehicle went, and documenting all of that. But they've got a lot of work that they've got to do in front of them.
And we're seeing some celebrity reactions coming in now on Twitter. Jada Pinkett Smith writes, prayers up for the GOAT. Tiger Woods, who was in an accident this morning, was just with him yesterday. Don't take not even a moment for granted. I know you're good because your tiger within is a beast. And we've got Julian Edelman writing, thinking of Tiger Woods this afternoon. Prayers. This is just the beginning of another major comeback. Finally, Isaiah Thomas here sending prayers up for Tiger Woods. These tributes are coming in. Gene, how significant is this for the sports world to come together around someone who's so legendary, but became a personal figure in addition to an athletic star?
Well, I think we root for the underdog, and it seems incredible to consider Tiger Woods an underdog, but given, again, the arc of his life, as I mentioned earlier, it has been full of incredible highs and incredible lows, and comebacks and triumphs and failures, and he's become very much a human figure as opposed to sort of a robotic golf machine. And so, in recent years, especially, Tiger sort of opened up as much as he can compared to his past. And so I think he made himself more accessible as far as the way that we see him and feel about him as a person. We've always admired him as an athlete, but this is just another, in reading those, just another example of sort of the width and breadth of his impact and what he means to people, especially in the sports world. So I think people root for him now because he's allowed you to root for him. He's shown parts of himself through his children, through his own failures that make him more accessible to us. So that's not surprising to hear you read those comments, and I'm sure there'll be hundreds, if not thousands, of people sort of echoing those same sort of feelings.
And Gene, we do have a little more information in now. This is from our Matt Gutman, who's at the scene. He spoke with the LA Sheriff's Department captain there. And they're saying they're not actively investigating a DUI. We know that Tiger has been investigated for that prior, but in this case, the LAPD is saying that there's no obvious indication of a DUI. They're not actively investigating that the jaws of life were not used, so they are countering that previous report. They are saying that they did pop open the windshield, however, and that it took 6 minutes from the time of the accident for officials to arrive on the scene. What do you make of that update?
Well, it's certainly a legitimate and valid question to ask, given the previous accident that Tiger Woods had in the Orlando area in recent times, in recent years. So certainly it's a question that would probably pop into most reasonable people's minds. Again, we'll see how all of this unfolds and what information is uncovered, and see the exact specifics of what led to this accident. But I certainly understand why people might ask that question, given Tiger's past. But in this case, from what you're telling us and what the updates are, that's interesting to hear that. And I'm sure we'll find out more in the coming hours.
And earlier today, ESPN fellow golfer Justin Thomas actually got choked up talking about the news of Tiger Woods' crash. Let's listen.
I'm sick to my stomach. It hurts to see one of now my closest friends, get in an accident. And, man, I just hope he's all right. Just worry for his kids. I'm sure they're struggling.
Gene, as fans, we often think of these athletes as unbreakable, both in the physical and in the emotional sense. So what's it like for you, as someone who interviews them and gets to see the more human side, when you see incidents like this, where not only do you worry about someone like Tiger Woods and is he going to pull through, but you see fellow athletes also in tears talking about him?
Well, you have to understand that Tiger is incredibly popular among his peers. He's especially close to Justin and many of those players on tour. They've seen him through the years. They've seen the evolution of him, sort of as a cyborg golfer who ruled the golf world for so many years. And then they've seen him deal with his injuries and his own personal challenges and battles that he's faced during his career. And as I was mentioning earlier, he's made himself more accessible to people, but especially in that world, in the PGA Tour world, among his peers. They see a version of Tiger Woods that we don't, or very rarely do. And so when Justin Thomas isn't able to speak without choking up a little bit, that shows you sort of the connection that he has with so many of those golfers and other athletes around the world. So that doesn't surprise me at all. And they've seen that from the very beginning, when he ruled the world, to now, where it's comeback is really the key word when you talk about Tiger Woods. So, and Justin mentioning Tiger's children, that is one of the reasons why I think we connect with Tiger more now. We saw his son playing in a tournament with him months ago. We've seen the photos of them growing up, and we've seen the connection that he has with them. So, again, he's just become more human to us. And when that happens, we identify with those situations and with those struggles. And today we identify with the greatest of all time as far as a golfer dealing with this horrible car crash.
All right, Gene Wyszykowski from ESPN. Gene, we appreciate the analysis, as always. The LA County Sheriff's Office is now saying they'll be holding a press conference at 6 p.m., so we should be getting more information out of that. In the meantime, we're going to go back to our affiliate KABC again with that breaking news for anyone just joining us. Tiger Woods is now hospitalized after a single car crash in Los Angeles earlier today. And again, we're going to go over to KABC for the latest.
Tournament that Tiger played in as an amateur, his very first PGA event as a 16-year-old, he played at Riviera Country Club back then when it was the Nissan Open. But of course, the Genesis Invitational now, they gave him his very first shot at a professional golf tournament at age 16. And now Tiger's 45 years old. Of course, he is, he is so important to golf. He is so important to the sport. Like you were talking about with George Sedano, when Tiger's out there, everybody benefits. Obviously, the ratings go up. If he makes it to the weekend, I know TV executives are just heaving a sigh of relief because they know that the eyes will be on their tournament that they are televising that weekend. Obviously, Tiger has gone on a roller coaster ride throughout his entire career. It was so incredible at the very beginning when he came onto the scene, when he won that Masters. I mean, it was a game changer. When he ran away with that U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. And, of course, in 2019, nobody thought that Tiger would win another major, but he won the 2019 Masters tournament after undergoing that back fusion surgery. And, of course, he's been trying to recover from his latest surgery and hoping to play at the Masters, which I don't think is going to happen. We just hope and pray that Tiger will be okay following this surgery.
Yeah, Rob. And Rob, we've been talking about his injuries. So many, he's been really plagued by so many injuries.
Yes, he has. You know, Philip, you know golf, and you know the golf swing. And when Tiger came onto the golf scene, onto the PGA Tour, everyone talked about how violent a swing that he had, and that a body cannot cope with that for a long period of time. And over a period of time, it sort of wore on him. And then I wouldn't really call it, you know, I would call it more just wearing down than injury. But of course, you know, he had the back surgeries. At one time, you remember over at Torrey Pines when he was playing in that U.S. Open, where he took a swing and he actually dropped to his knees. I mean, that was a scene that everyone just went, oh my gosh, he is really, really hurt. And he just continued to play on in that tournament that went to a Monday playoff, because that is the format for a playoff in the U.S. Open with Rocco Mediate. And it was just painful to watch him. But it's just, you marvel at his attitude, at his drive, at everything that he puts into his game. He's a perfectionist. I know at the beginning, it was a very different Tiger Woods when we interviewed him. I've interviewed him several times over the years. I've had the good fortune to interview him. But at the beginning, during I guess the glory years, when Tiger was winning almost all the time, winning the majors, when he won the Tiger Slam, I'd interview him before his tournament over at Sherwood Country Club back in December. You know, he would always have his own tournament in December. He would invite about 30 of the golfers that he picked and chose. And we'd do an interview because it aired on ABC over the weekend. And Tiger was very guarded, and he sort of had a film. And it was, you know, you just sort of expected that year after year. And after everything that Tiger went through, that fateful night, that Thanksgiving following the Australian Open with his wife, Elin, at that time, and the controversy that everything just came exploding and his private life was revealed, and everything that went after that. I mean, the DUI, so many things, the back surgeries. A lot of people say that so much fell apart because his dad died. His mentor, the man who made Tiger Woods, the golfer, he was lost. There's a lot of things that happened to him after that. You know, he may have sort of went off the rails, so to speak. But everything that happened to him over the years seemed to humble Tiger, because later, when I interview him, actually the day that they introduced the Genesis Invitational as Tiger Woods Foundation, the TGR Foundation, would be the beneficiary of that tournament, I was at that introductory press conference and I interviewed Tiger. And that was the very first time that I noticed Tiger has let down his guard. He is much more open. It's like he's been given a second lease on life when it comes to the golf world. He's feeling better. He was joking. He wasn't the same Tiger that had his guard up or had that film up. But yeah, I mean, he has changed a lot. And when it comes down to how he relates to the public, the galleries, when we did have the galleries, so much different. I mean, so thankful. You could see the appreciation in Tiger Woods when he would be walking down the fairways, you know, talking to the galleries, or, you know, just acknowledging the galleries, unlike the years past when during the glory years where he was just so focused that nothing else was going to, affect his attention. And, like I said, he just kind of turned into a brand new Tiger Woods, and a much more, I think, he was always likable, but when it comes down to dealing with the media and all that, he changed a lot. He let his guard down, and he was so much more open. And that's what I've noticed over the last 20 years.
Well, Rob, you said something just a moment ago that's really telling. As you're watching special coverage of the car accident with Tiger Woods, this is Eyewitness News, and it is about 1 o'clock as we continue our special coverage here. You mentioned, we forget that he began launching onto the national stage when he was just 16 years old. And so that's roughly 30 years ago that we knew who Tiger Woods was before he was a professional before he was even a professional golfer. We do have word from the PGA Tour. They have released a statement on this accident. I'll just read it to you as you watch a live picture there on your left, and then you look at file video there on the right. According to the PGA Tour, we have been made aware of Tiger Woods' car accident today. We are awaiting further information when he comes out of surgery. On behalf of the PGA Tour and our players, Tiger is in our prayers and will have our full support as he recovers. That statement from the PGA Tour today. And just a moment ago, Rob, as you were talking,
we're just listening there to our affiliate in Los Angeles, KABC. Amid the breaking news right now of golf legend Tiger Woods hospitalized after being injured in a serious car crash in Los Angeles earlier today. According to his agent, Woods is in surgery after suffering multiple leg injuries. The Los Angeles County Sheriff says it was a single vehicle rollover collision, but they are not actively investigating a DUI at this time. They say it took 6 minutes from the time of the accident for officials to arrive on the scene, and Tiger is reported to be in serious condition. I want to bring in Bob Herrick of ESPN. Bob, what's the latest that we know at this point about what happened here and about Tiger's condition?
Yeah, I think you have the latest on the condition. It sounds like he was on a Southern California road going to a corporate outing shoot of some sort. He was out there for the Genesis Invitational golf tournament over the weekend, which he hosts. Was not playing in it, obviously. He had a back procedure in December, so he wasn't playing. And apparently he had these outings planned yesterday and today. There was a bunch of social media posts of him yesterday participating in something that he does for an endorser. And apparently he was going to be doing that again today. He might have been on his way to that this morning. He was at a golf course in that Rancho Palos Verdes area, and so it would make sense if that's why he was still there. And as we've seen from some of the footage, some of the photos, the car rolled. Luggage was outside of the car. The car looks awful. His agent said multiple injuries to his leg or legs. We don't know exactly. And, that's about it. He's at the hospital. I don't know if he's out of surgery yet. It's been roughly, 6 hours since the accident. So, there's still a lot to be learned, apparently.
And Bob, I know that you've covered Tiger extensively. You certainly know him better than most. What is he like personally?
Well, he's always been very guarded. Even with those of us who've been around him for a long time, he kind of keeps things to himself, and he's not been the most outgoing. Although he got better here the last couple of years. Since he returned from a really serious back surgery in 2017, in 2018-19, he had, just a terrific run on the course. It was sort of a rebirth. I think he saw how fortunate he was to be back. He sort of appreciated it more. He realized his career could have been over 4 years ago, and he ended up winning 3 more times, including the Masters in 2019. So, I guess sort of the interesting thing as it relates to your question is they've been very tight-lipped about his situation since that back surgery in late December. Is actually a procedure. It was an outpatient thing, but still enough that was going to keep him out for a couple of months, and we really didn't know where he stood. And he did an interview on CBS Sunday during the final round of the tournament in which he was not real forthcoming, but also not real positive. So, and then here we are just 2 days later, and obviously all of that is sort of out the window.
So was there any sense that he was still recovering from that back procedure?
He was still recovering, but he was rehabbing. I mean, he was hitting balls yesterday at this outing. Now, I don't think he was hitting them full out. I don't think he was ripping drivers or, hitting shots like he would in a tournament. But it appeared that he was, moving around fine. He was doing okay. It was just there's a big leap from that to being able to obviously maybe compete in a tournament. And that's what we were, from the golf standpoint, what we were all wondering when that was going to be.
And Mike, what kind of an impact does this have, on the larger community? We've been seeing celebrity comments come in now, people paying tribute, people sending prayers up to Tiger. He's had such an impact beyond just the world of golf.
Once you get on Hawthorne, it's transformational. Tiger Woods is one of those transformational athletes that are blur the line, Diane, of being human and being like a myth, a god, a legend. Tiger was one of those individuals who just transcended sports, not just golf. Tiger is what you think about when you think of like peak excellence in athleticism. Tiger Woods is something that we all aspire to. And Diane, no matter what your golf swing was and no matter what your handicap is, like Tiger had a way to making you push for excellence. Even if you just work in corporate America, right? You just do your 9-to-5 job. Like when you think about the work ethic that it took to be that great, when you think about the mental fortitude it took for him to be so calm, to be so steady on the 18th hole, to putt it in, like to win those Masters, to win those green jackets, that take a mental fortitude that most humans, we just don't have. And Tiger was something to strive to. And I think from that aspect of it, that is what makes Tiger so important. And that's why for a community, it means so much, like for celebrities and athletic community, but it means so much to the sports community, but also too means so much too, like for the Black community, to see Tiger be such a barrier, to make barriers in golf that is viewed as this very elite sport, that is viewed as this very like this upper echelon of society and class. And to see this Black man be able to go through all that and be on top for so long, it gave so much a sense of pride. And what it showed was that it's capable for Black people to participate in golf on that level. And you saw so many young Black boys and girls taking up golf as a sport. It's the same impact that Serena and Venus have on the sport. Sometimes it just takes one to open up the door to show what is possible. And so that's what I'm reflecting on today as we think about Tiger. And it's unfortunate that is his legs. I am prayerful and hopeful that Tiger will come out on top. But Diane, the question is, I know everybody probably wants to see him back on the golf course. That's going to be up to Tiger. But if Tiger, when he listens and he watches us and when he's recovering, just know you have nothing to prove, Tiger. Like you have transcended the sport. You are the GOAT. And it is now time to debate, are you the GOAT of all sports or just in golf? And you've earned that right. So we're all wishing and praying for you. But you owe us nothing on the course anymore.
Well said. You talked about opening the door. Tiger blasted that door open. 82 official PGA Tour events, as you said, the greatest of all time. And we're now seeing tributes pouring in, prayers for Tiger Woods, wishing him a full recovery. That's from Evander Kane. We just saw comments go up from Reggie Bush. This one from Ian Poulter. Thoughts are with Tiger Woods and others involved, wishing a speedy recovery, and I hope the injuries are not bad. And we should say one good note to this whole thing is it seems like there were no other injuries involved. At least that's one bright spot. And again, Tiger right now reported to be in serious condition. Earlier, we had heard somewhere between serious and critical. So that's another little bit of good news, as it sounds like this so far, this is not critical. What we are hearing from his agent is multiple injuries to his legs, and that he is, or multiple leg injuries, I should say. We don't know if it's one leg or both, and that he is in surgery. But again, these tributes pouring in. And Mike, as you point out, as much as people might wonder, will he ever get back on the golf course? The big question now is, will he be okay? Will he be able to watch his son, his kids play golf? That's the big question.
That's a huge question. And Diane, I look at athletes as an artist in every sense of the word of the medium of art, right? When you think about those abstract artists, they're always worried about one more paint stroke, one more addition of this one more dot. It's so hard for them to walk away from the painting and from the canvas and say it is done. Athletes are the same way. When you're on the top of your game, and think about it, Diane, golf isn't a team sport. Golf is such a solo individual sport. It's just him and himself in that clubhouse preparing to walk out for the first round. It's just him when he's walking the fairways. He literally is by himself the entire time. And so it's only him who can take himself off of that field. And so the mental dance that he's going to be doing with himself is going to be what's going to be challenging for him. But I just hope, Diane, that he just knows that, there's nothing left to prove, right? And that we celebrate you. There's literally nothing else. I mean, how many more Masters could you get? You've proven what is unprovable. We just never seen someone transcend sports the way that we have. But that just goes to the power of Tiger, right? Tiger made us pause on Sundays as we watch the final rounds to see where would he end up on the leaderboard, right? And this is what we're doing now. We're pausing, right? And we're thinking about it. But that is the power of sports. Sports has a way of unifying. Sports has a way of bringing the world together for good and for bad. And Tiger represents all that. His journey, Diane, for me is yes, we call him the comeback kid, right? The comeback king. He's great for that, and to show how he's done that. It just gives an example that no matter what your circumstance is, no matter how much you may be defeated, how much people pile on you or society may pile on you, he showed that he was able to get up in the face of adversity and live to fight another round, to hit another par. I mean, what an incredible human being and an athlete.
Well, and you talk about, the comeback king. He's come back from lots of different challenges, both personal, professional, medical. And in some ways, we heard, I think it was Gene Wichkowski saying how guarded Tiger tends to be, or maybe it was Bob Harrig saying it. But in some ways, those events in his life opened up his personal life, likely in a way that he didn't want. But in a way, it introduced us to the person that is Tiger Woods, not just the star that is Tiger Woods or the athlete that is Tiger Woods. And in many ways, when stories like this happen, it seems to make people root for him that much more, because you're not just rooting for this kind of elusive figure. People are rooting for the person, for the father.
Ooh, Diane, that's so good. I mean, you're right, because Tiger for so long had this incredible armor, right? The untouchable. And I think he needed that. I think individuals who are at the peak of their game in individual sports, they need to have that armor so that the world doesn't get them distracted, because it's all mental. Once you go onto that course and you hit that first tee, it's nothing but a mental game. And so you need to have as many things blocked out as possible, especially when it comes to like individual sports. And I think it was important for him to do that. But I think Tiger understood at a certain point that it is okay to be human. It is okay to let us in. But I think it was after he even realized himself that he's one of the greatest of all times. And it's because of that we know the human. We see him interacting with his children. We see him being a father, right? We see the emotions that comes out with him when he has that victory, that famous clutch of the forearm that he always has. That's what we're rooting to see one more time. And no matter what the place and space is, I think we're all going to be rooting for him to walk out that hospital and to do that famous forearm hook that he always does. We root for those. It's interesting that you bring that up, Diane, because America loves to cheer you on to get to the top, but then we love to celebrate your downfall too as well. Tiger is different, Diane. I think we've always wanted to see Tiger get back up. And that is rare, especially when it comes to celebrities. Once a celebrity begins to fall, we all tend to pile on. But with Tiger, we always seem to be rooting for him to always get back up again. And that's rare. You see that in boxing from time to time with a knockout. But otherwise than that, though, it's really rare. But that goes to the power of how transformational he has been with the game of golf and as an athlete.
Absolutely. So many right now hoping that Tiger Woods will get back up once again. Sirius XM radio host Mike Muse and ABC News contributor, we appreciate your time as always. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Diane.
And again, for those of you just joining us, golf legend Tiger Woods has been hospitalized right now after he was injured in a serious car crash in Los Angeles earlier today. His agent right now says Woods is in surgery. He says he suffered multiple leg injuries. The Los Angeles County Sheriff says that this was a single vehicle rollover collision. Nobody else was injured. But they say they are not actively investigating a DUI at this time. And the LA County Sheriff's Office says it took 6 minutes from the time of the crash before officials arrived on the scene. They say they had to pull the windshield off in order to get Tiger out of the car. We, of course, are going to continue to keep you updated. Right now, the fire department is saying Tiger Woods is in serious condition. And again, his agent is saying that he's in surgery for multiple leg injuries. Right now, we're going to take you back to our Los Angeles affiliate, KABC, for the very latest on this developing story. And then at 6 p.m., the LA County Sheriff's Office is going to hold a press conference. We will bring you that live right here on ABC News Live.
He's a celebrity where he's now just famous for who he is. He's famous for being Tiger Woods. He could not win another golf tournament the rest of his life. And whatever Tiger Woods did would make front page news. I mean, very few get to that point. Usually when the athletic, when the glory fades a little bit, you're not playing anymore. Yeah, he's a great star. He was a great player. Tiger Woods is going to be famous forever because he's just Tiger Woods. And that goes into everything about his story of how great he was, the fall of Tiger, the rise again. It's something everybody can get in on and say, yes, I understand this. Boy, look how great he was. But look, he fell. And now I watch the resumption of his career and getting back up and winning the Masters a couple of years ago. It's something everybody can get in on. There is nobody who has been like Tiger Woods in my lifetime in sports.
Well, I think one of the things that you mentioned Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Tiger Woods, you don't even need to mention the last name. You can say LeBron, Michael, Tiger. And I think when you can go first name, that shows you who this person is. And I think, Jason, it just takes me back to the peak of his golfing. When he was at his best as a golfer, you mentioned there would be other golfers who won the tournament that you mentioned less than what Tiger did in that weekend. He might have not played well. That was bigger news than whoever won the golf tournament when he was really playing well.
Yeah, if Tiger, let's just say it's a tournament where Tiger wasn't playing well. He didn't win all of them, even though he changed the way we look at success on the golf course, which is mind blowing. I'll get to that in a second. But like, say somebody wins a tournament, they win. But on Saturday, Tiger Woods had a 375-yard drive, and he was on the green and won, and he eagle putted. I mean, that's all anybody would talk about. It doesn't matter what anybody else did. Tiger, did you see that shot by Tiger Woods? Oh, my goodness, did you see the shot? I remember we ran highlights at ABC when it would be a night, hey, Tiger had the shot today. Let's put it in. Why? Because it's Tiger Woods. I mean, anytime he did something, it was newsworthy and noteworthy, and he was bigger news than anything else that went on. And he changed. I mean, so many people, you could say, oh, this guy changed the sport, this guy changed the sport. Guys come in and they win and they do well. And look, has Tom Brady changed the NFL? Well, he's changed how we view winning and what a quarterback can do. But Tiger Woods came in, and he would win tournaments every 3 or 4 weeks. He'd win a tournament. And suddenly it was, well, Tiger hasn't won in a while. Tiger hasn't won in a month. It's okay. Other guys go 2 years. The best golfers in the world, the Nick Faldos and the Greg Normans, they could go a year, 2 years within winning any tournament. And it was, I'm still having a great career. I just won a couple of years ago. If Tiger hadn't won in the last 6 weeks, it would be, it's not in a slump. Isn't that? What's wrong with Tiger Woods? He hasn't won. He changed how we view success, because he won basically 1 out of every 3 or 4 tournaments he entered. And, he played less tournaments as time went on because, you've talked about the physical ailments that he had, and there was a couple of things that went on in his career that have affected him. But, even playing less tournaments, he was still able to win 1 out of every 3 or 4 tournaments. And usually, when you golf, if you walk away, if you don't play golf every week, play tournaments every week or every couple of weeks, that's a skill that kind of deadens after a while, and you have to get that back. Didn't matter. Tiger Woods, oh no, I'm not playing. I'm going to play a practice round here on Wednesday. I'm ready to go. And then he would go win the tournament and shoot 12 under. It would be, well, I guess Tiger Woods doesn't need to practice at all. He just show up and win like he's done his whole career.
He had an unprecedented ascent, for sure. It was magical. But some, people have been tweeting about Tiger Woods, as I mentioned earlier, and someone wrote this. I just want to repeat it because it's so just so true. Whether or not Tiger ever comes back to play again is pretty irrelevant right now. That he comes back to parent his kids is the important thing right now.
And that's something because we have seen the evolution of Tiger from this guy who, as much as he was liked, because Tiger Woods was always likable. He came on, he had the big smile, he won, he was reverential towards the sport of golf, but we didn't really know him. He was someone in that first run, because he had 2 runs of fame, right? The run from when he started until 2008, and then the comeback after the personal issues that he had, and that was the two ways of Tiger Woods' career. That first one, we didn't really know him. It was difficult. You couldn't get an interview with Tiger Woods unless you really were in the inner circle. He didn't go and talk to a lot of people. It was hard. It was, boy, look how great Tiger Woods is. We appreciated what he did on the course, but nobody really knew him. And then he has this incredible fall from grace that becomes a story that is just everybody's just as interested in as his golf career. What does he do now? How does he come back? And you have seen in that second run since 2009, 2010, he has become that guy who has done more interviews and has done more things charity-wise and been more visible in them. He's always done charity things, but now he's visible, and now you see trying to give back to the sport. And it's, obviously, I think when I hear myself say that, I think about what Kobe Bryant was doing, trying to give back to sports, give back to women's sports. And that's what he was doing with the end of his career when he was done. Tiger Woods is still playing, but you can tell that's where he is now. I think where he was headed today, I know you guys have talked about that he was probably going to the airport. I think where he was scheduled, if what I can trust on Twitter, and again, this is Twitter, but it's people with check marks. I think he had another day of shooting some kind of videos like he was doing with Dwayne Wade and David Spade for Golf Channel, I believe. And then potentially he could have been going out of town then after that, which is why he had bags and stuff with him. But I think that was the set for him today. And these are more things that he's doing now. I mean, he wasn't doing things like this his first run around. It was difficult. I remember one time when we were going to get him on the radio at Fox. This is in his first time. This is like 2003, 2004. And he was doing an interview because he was pushing a new club. It was like one of his new Nike clubs. And they said, okay, you get Tiger for one question. We're like, wait, what? He said, no, you get Tiger for one question. I go, wait, so Tiger Woods is going to come on the air and we can ask him one question? Yeah. I said, okay, well, why? Well, he's got 1,000 of these interviews he has to do, so everybody gets one question. So we didn't know what to ask him. What are we going to ask this guy? I mean, we get one question for Tiger Woods. I think we asked him what the best golf joke he had heard was, and he told us. And that was, I was like, wow. And I'll always remember that because that was something that in that first run of Tiger that he didn't get a lot of. But we asked him, what's the best golf joke yet? And I forget what it is. It's not that I can't tell it.
I'd be shocked if you could tell that one.
Yeah, no. There's other jokes I could tell. This joke you told me, Philip, I can't tell. But that's the thing with Tiger is that, we didn't see that. So that story, even though it's 17 years old, always sticks with me of Tiger Woods, that we got a glimpse of him there telling that one fun joke, and then we saw more of it from 2009 through now.
Well, I find it fascinating. A lot of people might not remember this. Maybe this shows my age. But to show you what Tiger Woods was also, and again, we're getting word that it does not appear as if his injuries are life-threatening. He's had multiple leg injuries, and he's undergoing surgery. We're getting unconfirmed reports. There might be a press conference around 3 o'clock with an update on what all is going on. Again, we're working to get confirmation on that. But to Jason, and we want to bring Rob in as well, who's here. I remember back when Tiger was just getting started, and he turned professional, and he signed what was at that point an unheard of sponsorship contract for $10 million. And people thought, how are you doing this? He hasn't even won a tournament yet. And that might have been, and I want to say it was Nike, but it might have been American Express. But it turned into probably one of the best deals from a marketing perspective ever. When you think about Tiger Woods, from the first moment he stepped onto the professional stage, he started winning tournaments. And that sponsorship money, while astronomical at the time, is a drop in the bucket when you think about it. Rob?
Yeah, they got him early, right, Philip? That was the marketing genius way back when, because they knew what Tiger could be and what he did turn out to be. You remember the 25-year, $25 million contract Magic Johnson signed way back when? When it comes down to marketing, I don't think you can really name too many people that are on the level of Tiger Woods when it comes to reaching so many different people, so many different generations, like Jason Smith was saying. There's only a few icons like LeBron, the late Kobe Bryant, of course, Michael, and Tiger. You were talking about something kind of struck a chord for me. when we used to interview Tiger Woods, and he was always so, like I said earlier, at the very beginning, he was very guarded. Later on, he opened up a lot. I remember one time I interviewed him in Las Vegas for his Tiger Jam, which he had very popular pop artists have a big concert. It was a big benefit for his Tiger Woods Foundation. And that was one of the things that I first joked around with him. As I got to know him more, as I saw him more often, and he would see me and be a little more comfortable, I sat there. And Philip, you know my game. It's terrible, my golf game. I haven't played in a long time. But I said, at the end of the interview, I said, Tiger, I got this problem. I'm always going right. Is there anything you can, any tips you can give me or something like that? And he just smiled and he said, why don't you just aim more left? I mean, it was very simple, but it was a funny moment, and that's the first time I actually saw sort of a funny side of Tiger Woods.
Well, if Jason's still with us, before I let him go, because I do want to talk some more with Rob, but one of the things I asked George, and I'd like to ask Rob, but Jason, I don't want to take too much more of your time. The question I had to George was, what do you think for Tiger fans, how this is going to hit them, in the sense that it seems like every time he's right there and almost we're going to get to see Tiger again, something like this happens physically to him that just kind of is a gut punch to his fans, the people that really like him?
Well, I'll tell you what. How many times have we counted Tiger Woods out before about playing and what he could do?
Yeah.
All right. He was on an incredible run to 2000. Then he had, like we talked about, his fall. I never thought he was going to get back and win a major. He's a tinkerer, right? And that's the thing, is that he's had so many injuries over the course of his career because he completely changed his swing in the middle of his first run of dominance. He had a perfect, smooth swing that was better than anything we've ever seen. But he knew, with the young guys coming up, I got to be able to be a little bit more dynamic. He completely revamped his swing. And when you tinker, you put a lot of pressure on your shoulder, on your knee, and that's what kind of happened with Tiger Woods. And that's what made it more difficult for him to continue that level of excellence. I mean, he still went on and was able to win tournaments and beat the young guys coming up. But, that takes a toll on your body. I never thought he would get back. Never thought he'd win a major. I talk on my show all the time, and I go, if I put the over-under for Tiger Woods' future majors at a half, is anybody going to take the over? I mean, Tiger just didn't feel like he could even get back out on the course. And not only has he gotten back out, then he won a couple of tournaments, but okay, it's about majors for him. And then he goes and he wins the Masters 2 years ago. And it was absolutely stunning. And I remember that moment saying, can we really doubt what he's done physically? What he can do the rest of his career? I mean, he has overcome so much with the injuries and personal, be able to come and compete and be someone that can win majors. Comes out of this, and look, if it's injuries to his legs and he's able to do it, he's going to come back and play. There's no way he's going to sit back and say, yeah, this is it, I'm not going to play anymore. He's going to do everything he can to get back out on the course. Because you know what? I guarantee you, he'll come out of surgery, and he's going to be thinking about Jack Nicklaus's record. He's going to be thinking about Jack going, when can I get out? When can I do it? When can I get back and do it? Because this is who he is. And he has come back from so much when he could have easily shut it down and said, you know what? I had my run. It's not working for me anymore. I'm going to do something else. But he came all the way back. It was a 10-year comeback for him from 2009 until he won the Masters. So you can't doubt anything physically he's going to try and come back to do. If it's at all possible for him to do it, he'll do it. I don't know when it's going to be, but he's going to do it.
Well, Jason, wanted to say thank you for joining us. I mean, it's been a pleasure, and thanks for your perspective. Jason Smith, Fox Sports Radio host, also former co-worker of us here at ABC 7, and producer for Rob Fukuzaki, who continues to join us. And Rob, you're right around the corner from the accident.
Yes, as I mentioned, for those just tuning in, I happened to be in the area because I was here for a funeral service for my great aunt, Mitzi, who passed away a few months ago at the age of 99, my grandma's sister. My grandma's also right here. I was going to put some flowers for her. And during the service, we heard all of the helicopters. And then I started to get texts from people and realized what was going on. And I have a cousin that lives really close to where the crash site is. And she said all of the roads were closed and she was wondering what was going on. Then she texted me. She said, oh, this is due to a car crash. We just found out it was Tiger Woods in the crash. And then there were people that were coming to the service who were running just a bit late because they were having to deal with the road closures in the area. So I'm just right around the corner. And I have an uncle, my dad's brother, was just telling me during the service when I told him what was going on that he said that there's a lot of accidents that do happen in that same area where Tiger Woods got into that one car accident. So, yeah, I still can hear the helicopters. I'm sure there's a lot of TV stations above the or above the car crash where Tiger Woods went down. What was the time? Because we're here at about 11 o'clock. The service started about 11:30. And did it happen around 10 o'clock-ish,
no,
around there?
Rob, the accident happened at 7:12 this morning, but we didn't really early, but we didn't really hear about it until closer to the 11 o'clock hour. But Rob, I just want to point out this is. It takes me back to January of last year after Kobe's accident when that happened, and we were all taking it all in. I just keep thinking about that day and so many similarities to this. So now we know that Tiger is undergoing surgery and he has multiple leg injuries, but we understand they're not life-threatening injuries. So this is different from Kobe's accident, but still so many similarities.
Yeah, you know, when I first got the text, one of our sports producers sent me the information that was going around Twitter, and immediately I was thinking the worst because it didn't say what his condition was. It didn't say anything. It just said that it was one car accident. It was confirmed it was Tiger Eldrick Woods. But immediately I was, you know, I thought the worst. January 26th, I will never forget that day. Where I was when I heard what happened with Kobe Bryant. I think you can sort of combine the two and see similarities because they're such iconic figures in the sports world, iconic figures worldwide. I mean, internationally, not just here in the United States. Kobe was so huge in China. Tiger was all over the world designing golf courses. You know, his Tiger brand was international. Is international. I don't want to say past tense. Obviously, like you said, Giovanna, we can compare the two, but obviously Tiger is going to survive, thank goodness. But when you compare the two, yeah, very, very similar, iconic figures. Like Jason Smith was saying, there's only a handful of people that you can really put in that category, and Tiger Woods certainly is one of them. I remember in the height of his career, you were talking to Philip about, you were talking to Jason about how somebody might win a tournament, but everybody wanted to talk about what Tiger did. You know, Tiger came in fourth in that tournament. I remember watching SportsCenter when there's a golf tournament. It could not be a major, it could be just a regular PGA event, and they go over the highlights. Here's so-and-so on number 7, birdie's here. Here's his fairway shot here. Here's his putt on 18, and he wins the tournament. Let's go to Tiger's game. And then he has his entire own highlight package. I mean, that's how huge Tiger Woods was. And of course, there's so many golfers on tour now who were just kids growing up when Tiger was at the height of his career, when he won the Masters back in 1997. He's won 5 Masters, 4 PGA Championships, 3 British Opens, and 3 U.S. Opens. And like Jason said, you know, he comes back from this, he's going to want to get back out on the course as much as possible, as much as his body is going to allow him to, because he wants to catch Jack Nicklaus. And also he wants to catch Sam Snead. He just needs one more PGA Tour victory to be the all-time wins leader in PGA Tour history. He's at 82, tied with Sam Snead.
It's an amazing series of numbers that you throw out there, Rob. You know, when you start talking about how many and how much money and all of these things, but I really think with Tiger Woods, for so many people, it goes so far beyond the wins, the injuries, and everything. He is Tiger Woods, and he made golf cool for an audience that never watched it. As we have all said, he's known by just Tiger. And this accident today, while we are hopeful that he is going to get out of surgery very quickly, it scared people. Rob, thank you. If you'll stick around, we want to go, speaking of the injury, we want to go to Carlos Granda, who is at Harbor UCLA. Not sure that we're going to have a lot of information at this point, Carlos, but hearing word that Tiger Woods is in surgery for serious, possibly critical leg injuries is terrifying to people.
Well, absolutely, for anyone in the sports world or in anywhere, actually, because Tiger is such a legend around the world. And as you said, we are at Harbor UCLA Medical Center, and right now information, we're not getting much of it at this moment. Officials here have not given us any updates, and there's no indication if there are going to be any updates at all anytime soon. As you said, the last we know is that he is in surgery. Now, as you and Rob were just talking about a minute ago, this is an incredibly huge story. Let's pan over to show you the sidewalk, just to give you an idea of all the media that's lined up here in the sidewalk, because they're not letting us onto the hospital property. But that is media from all over the world waiting for any information on Tiger Woods' condition. Now, all we do know is that according to the fire department, Woods was brought here to Harbor UCLA Medical Center by ambulance in serious condition. And according to his manager, he did suffer multiple leg injuries and is undergoing surgery right now. Now, he did undergo back in December surgery on his back. That was just before Christmas. And he's had several surgeries for his back over the years. So I'm not sure if that could in any way affect what's happening here, because all we know is it's multiple leg injuries. But again, information, not much at all from the hospital, obviously because of all the rules that cannot give us information without consent of any family members. His manager in that tweet earlier today did say that they want to respect their privacy. So to be honest, we're really not sure what information will be coming from the hospital. But we're here. As soon as we hear any updates on his condition or anything, we'll get back to you live. This is Carlos Granda reporting live here in Torrance. Back to you guys.
Hey, Carlos, thank you for that update. We'll check in with you a little bit later. Right now, we have joining us Dr. Anthony Cardillo with Mend Urgent Care. And Dr. Cardillo, we know you work in the emergency room. You likely see injuries like this. We understand that Tiger Woods suffered multiple leg injuries. One report, and none of this confirmed, that he had multiple fractures. What kind of treatment what would doctors be doing for him right now?
Okay, well, let's just walk this from the beginning. I will tell you, just looking at the image there, that this is a major casualty incident, right? A rollover with a trapped individual. LA County responded. LA County Fire and LA City Fire, perhaps the most premier trauma paramedics in America, if not the world. So we had a great team responding early on to extricate him from that vehicle. It looks like they had to use the jaws of life, which is basically an instrument that is used to extricate a person from a vehicle that is trapped, that cannot get out by themselves, or if the car is too severely damaged. As you can see there in that image, it looks like the entire front of the car is collapsed in, so that would have accounted for the utilization of that jaws of life. He was then taken to Harbor UCLA Medical Center, which again is perhaps one of the most premier trauma centers in America, if not the world. Harbor UCLA is touted as one of the best trauma programs that we have in the nation. So he was brought to an excellent place with some of the most qualified trauma physicians in America to take care of him. And they promptly would have evaluated him for any trauma starting from head to toe. So they would have done CAT scans on his head, on his cervical spine, on his chest, looking for any cervical spinal injury, any intrathoracic or chest injury, and then intra-abdominal, so another CAT scan of the lower abdominal area, pelvis, and lower extremities. It sounds like, and this is the only report we have so far, is that he suffered lower extremity injuries. This is very common in these sort of car accidents where you will crush your pelvis, you can fracture your femur or the long thigh bones all the way down to the tibia, in the ankle area. So one of those bones, it sounds like, was severely damaged, and we usually rush them to the OR if it is either A, severely damaged, or B, if it is an open fracture, or C, if the pelvis is involved and the pelvis bleeds extensively. So we don't know the extent yet. It sounds like he is in great hands, though, at Harbor UCLA. He's in the OR with some of the best surgeons in America. So we do expect he's going to do well. We just don't know the extent of his injuries at this juncture, and I'm sure they'll be giving us reports very soon. But it sounds like he is in the most capable hands we have possible here in LA County right now.
Dr. Cardillo, I'm going to ask you to stick around, but because I want to talk to Josh Haskell very quickly. But I'll tell you what I'm going to ask you. I'd like to have you explain what moderate to critical means when the fire department was saying, hey, he had moderate to critical injuries, because that was causing a little bit of confusion early on. But before I let you answer that question, I want to go to Josh Haskell, who is right by the scene. And Josh, it does look like they've brought in some heavy equipment to try to get the vehicle out of there.
That's right. We are in Rolling Hills Estates right now, Hawthorne Boulevard right below me, and I'm going to get out of the way so you can get a glimpse of the Genesis vehicle. You can see it's on its side there. They just brought in a pretty large, I'd call it a tow truck that they really use for buses, and it has a crane, as you can see. It's sticking out, and it appears that they're going to try and put this vehicle upright. You can see that there's someone from the tow company, and then they're talking to LA County Sheriff's deputies. And I just, Sean's giving you a glimpse right now of what that vehicle looks like, and you can see that there's some debris in the back, really banged up from our angle. And Sean, if you can just pan to the left and show where Hawthorne Boulevard is, still closed. And in the distance, you can see it looks like there was some oil left on the road. There's another workman in the distance cleaning that up. And when I first arrived, there was some debris in that center divider, and sheriff's deputies were surrounding that debris. So it appears that when this accident happened at 7:12 this morning, the vehicle did lose some debris as it flipped over and then ended up on its side. The view that we're showing you right now, you can see that red crane looks like it's extending out. Maybe they're tying it to the front of that Genesis vehicle that Tiger Woods was in this morning. And we are in the Rolling Hills Estates area live right now for you on Channel 7. And just quite a scene to, come back here, know that the road is closed, look to my right and see that vehicle just resting there, and to know that Tiger Woods was inside, and that this is just an active, huge, really investigation for the LA County Sheriff's Department. We know that they're trying to reconstruct this accident scene as they do all major accidents. And as Sean showed you in the distance there up Hawthorne Boulevard, there's another tow truck, and it looked like someone was putting some sort of material on what we believe might be oil or something that dripped out of the vehicle during this accident. Now a third tow truck, it looks like that might be the tow truck that they're going to put this vehicle on, because the crane is obviously just used to get it out of the debris. And you can just imagine what it was like this morning for the fire department, for the sheriff's department, coming on this scene and having to use the jaws of life to extricate Tiger Woods from that vehicle that we're showing you right now. Philip?
Well, to point out one thing that you just mentioned, the person that was spreading absorptive material on that oil spill, technically, I mean, it's not a major hazmat spill, but technically that is hazardous material that they need to make sure they've contained and gotten out of the way, if it's oil or if it's gas or whatever sort of fuel there. So thank you, Josh. We're going to continue to watch that shot. It might be just a few minutes before they get that vehicle up and onto that flatbed. But I want to bring it back, Dr. Cardillo, if I could. Doctor, did that make sense with the question I was asking you? Because early on, when information was just coming in, and the fire department was saying that Tiger Woods had moderate to critical injuries, what would that imply, or what would that mean?
Yeah, we use that terminology quite often. So it's gonna mean that, number one, his vital signs was stable enough that he wasn't decompensating acutely at that moment. However, his injuries were critical enough that they could lead to life-threatening illness. So if he was, for example, had a very large distracting fracture in his lower extremity, that could hemorrhage quite excessively, and that would be the critical nature, meaning that he has an injury that is of critical concern that needs immediate trauma active activation. So we use this terminology to determine which hospital the patient's going to be going to, whether it's to a trauma center or whether it's to a local receiving facility. So the moment it was amped up to a critical level, he was being brought to a local trauma center, in this case, Harbor UCLA. And he probably had some injury in the lower extremity that the paramedics were concerned enough could lead to life-threatening injury. So that's where the critical part came. But he was probably stable enough at the time where he was moderately at risk. So that's why they used the moderate, and then they amplified it with the critical component. His injuries were probably pretty severe. Just looking at this car, it's very obvious that he was wearing his seatbelt. If he wasn't wearing his seatbelt, I'm sure he would be in much more critical, if not life-threatening illness. When a car flips like this, your only survival mechanism is your seatbelt. However, you can see that front end damage. When you hit the embankment like that, the deceleration forces are so intense that the entire dashboard of that car underneath will slam into your knees. And that's where you get fractures in your lower extremities, primarily in the femur, the large thigh bones, as well as the pelvis. Those lower extremity structures tend to bleed quite excessively. And so that's what they were probably indicating, that he was moderate, he was stable. However, he was critical enough that he had injuries that could lead to death. And that's why they rushed him to the trauma center. And from there, they did quick, we call it the PAN scan from head to toe. We have CAT scans to look at any injury, intracranial, cervical spine, thoracic spine, chest, and then abdomen and pelvis. And I'm sure they found some injuries, and he was rushed to the OR almost immediately. Now, we're several hours into this, so I'm sure he's got some pretty extensive injuries, which we will find out, and I'm sure it's going to be pelvic and femur fractures that he has.
And Dr. Cardillo, how long might a surgery to address injuries that we're talking about here, how long might that surgery last, and how long will it be before we know, what his prognosis is?
Yeah, we're looking at minimum 4 to 6 hours a minimum in the OR with prep time and the time they finish and get him out of the OR. So look at 4 to 6 hours minimum. And then obviously the next 12 to 24 hours are going to be critical, looking at his hemodynamic stability, whether his vital signs are, staying stable. A lot of times people have lower extremity fractures and they'll form blood clots in their lower extremities, which then will affect the cardiovascular system. So we'll be watching him very closely for all of these issues that can pop up post-operatively. But let's just hope that it's a straightforward lower extremity fracture that needs to be, put back together, so to speak. And luckily, he is at one of the best trauma centers in America with, some of the best doctors in America working on him right now. So he's in great hands. We just don't know the extent of the injuries. We're postulating here. But looking at that car and the types of injuries that we typically see in the emergency department, it's going to be pelvis, femur, tibia and fibula. Those are the main fractures that we see in this kind of injury. And of course, head trauma from being jostled around a lot. But I'm sure, his initial head CT was negative at this point because he's already in the OR for the lower extremity injury. If he had an intracranial process, he would have been in the OR for that problem before the lower extremity problem. So it looks like it's going to be an isolated lower extremity injury issue that they're taking care of right now.
Okay, Dr. Cardillo, thank you so much. I have to say that hearing your description of what a moderate to critical injury is, it just turned my stomach to think of how horrible this accident is for Tiger Woods, the human being. And we're also getting, you mentioned that housekeeping effort. So what was that? Well, Josh Haskell is joining us now. And Josh, as we look at the vehicle, you can see the initial reports were jaws of life were used to extricate Tiger Woods from that vehicle. But now we're getting word that wasn't used, and you can tell that because the doors are still on the car. How did they get him out?
We're hearing that it was some sort of a hook, some other sort of a tool, not jaws of life. And what I can tell you, talking to neighbors and people that live here who allowed us to be in this location, they tell me they didn't hear anything, that they didn't even know that this had happened, which to me is striking, that you could not hear the accident actually happen. They obviously heard the aftermath and the responding ambulance and those lights and sirens. But right now we're showing you live on ABC 7. You can see that they have been able to lift that Genesis, I believe it's a Genesis GV80, up. The crane is now lifting it off the ground. This is the first time we've actually been able to really see underneath that car. You can see that the vehicle is missing quite a few parts. And as Sean pans to the right just a little bit, I'm not sure picture, if you see it in the shot, you can see some of the material from that car, and it's now swinging. It looks like the crane may put it on that tow truck that I pointed out earlier, which is right in front of where the truck that has the crane is parked right now. And you can see sheriff's deputies. They are still working this scene, trying to piece together exactly what happened. We're seeing some deputies with cameras and, of course, an accident reconstructionist. And it looks like the person that works for the tow company, Philip, is now talking to those deputies. They're coming in with the folks with the tow company are coming in with some sort of a tool, I see. I'm not sure if that'll help them. It looks like they're lowering the vehicle now. It's just quite remarkable to see what's left of this car. Those front tires just completely bent. As we will learn more exactly how they got Tiger Woods out of this vehicle.
Josh, I actually have some of that information.
You just clarified that point.
Yeah, actually, we have some of that information. Apparently, LA County Fire used an axe and a big hook to actually pull the windshield out. So they actually had to pull the windshield out of the vehicle and then take Tiger Woods through that. They did not cut open the door. I mean, that you can see in the shot that you have there, the doors are still in place. So they didn't use jaws of life to rip open the doors, because those are quite, they just rip apart the door. So that's still in place. So they actually took him out through the windshield to stabilize him. And as you heard Dr. Cardillo say a moment ago, now you can see the windshield is gone. So that's how they got him out. And then when we talk about the possible rollover element of the vehicle, if you look at the sunroof, it's still intact. So the window, the windshield for the roof is still intact and not broken out. But they took Tiger Woods out through the windshield after using an axe and a hook to yank out that windshield and get him out through that way with significant, moderate to critical injuries to him, whether they were all in his lower extremities, as Dr. Cardillo pointed out. He could have had pelvis injuries, could have had compound fractures, an open wound of some sort, but they did have him at some level stabilized, but his injuries were still critical or potentially critical enough that his life could have been at risk in this circumstance. So that's fascinating how they were able to get him out of there. They didn't use the jaws of life, probably because it's on its side.
Yeah, and we cannot see the windshield.
I used to be an EMT years ago, and that's what we did all the time.
Go ahead, Dr. Cardillo. You were saying you used to be EMT and did that all the time?
Yeah, I was going to say I used to be an EMT back in New York City way before medical school. And when we'd roll up on a scene like this with a car that's this damaged, it wasn't very hopeful. This was before seatbelts and airbags. But these sort of new vehicles can take really quite a bit of damage. And you can look at the core of the car is still intact. However, we would extricate people quite often through the windshield because it is fairly easy to pull off. And the windshields do come out pretty easily. You have a nice open area to get that patient out. But more importantly, we have to use backboards to secure, because we don't know if the person has any spinal injury when you come upon this scene. So we'd like to place a patient into a C-collar and to put them on a backboard. And the easiest way to do that is to get them through that front windshield, because you can bring a lot of fire department personnel into the car now through that windshield to stabilize the cervical spine, get the person on a backboard, and then take them out without incurring further injury. And I will say, you look at the sunroof, most sunroofs are fairly sturdy because the cars always have potential for rolling over. But you can see that sunroof did not break open, and that's actually a good sign that it's a very well-made vehicle. That sunroof did not break. And so it's hard to get through, access through those. But also, if you look at the configuration of that front seat, it would be very challenging to get a backboard to the patient through that sunroof. The easiest way is through the front windshield. And like I mentioned, it does come off fairly easy. And I will say, LA County, we have some of the best paramedics and fire personnel in the entire nation. These guys know what they're doing. They do this over and over again on our large freeways. And kudos to them for getting Tiger out as quickly as possible to help save his life. And that's just a testimony to how good our fire department is in both LA City and LA County. These guys really are phenomenal. Also, just reinforcing the need to always be wearing your seatbelt. Again, you get a car that flips over like this, you're not going to survive if you're not wearing a seatbelt. So I'm sure Tiger was wearing a seatbelt. But we want to just re-emphasize that the critical nature of this kind of injury you can get. Anything that happens inside of that vehicle with this rollover to the lower pelvis can lead to dramatic levels of bleeding and instability. And that's where they classified him as critical and took him to the local trauma center. Now, if he was stable and he was able to ambulate outside of that car, they would have taken him to just a local facility, the nearest facility. But in this case, the trauma was so severe. So, but it sounds like he's in great hands. Again, Harbor UCLA, one of the top trauma centers in America where he's at right now. I'm sure he's in the most competent and capable hands at this juncture.
Dr. Cardillo, I have a question about extricating victims from the windshield. Why would you do that as opposed to the Jaws of Life? Is it because the Jaws of Life instrument is not nearby? Is it, time is of the essence issue?
The Jaws of Life, you think about it, it's a large crushing machine. What we use it for primarily is on that door jamb or the metal that goes to the side of the windshield. It's that metal structure that we use the Jaws of Life to actually clamp and cut. Now, they could have very easily have used the Jaws of Life in that bar there, that windshield metal bar, to cut that open, and that opens up the entire front of the car. So I won't exclude the fact that they could have used the Jaws of Life, but the Jaws of Life is just a mechanism to cut the metal of the car, typically in the door jambs and in that metal framing that attaches the front windshield there. You'll see it right there on our middle of our screen. They'll usually cut that bar with the Jaws of Life, and that's what they do to open up, basically rip the entire roof of the car off. But I'm sure as they were starting to do that, I'm pretty confident they took the Jaws of Life down there. They were working on everything. One of the firemen was able to get through the glass of the windshield and start pulling it out. These guys all worked together in unison. That's what they trained for. I'm sure one of them gained access immediately to that windshield and was able to yank it out before they had to actually cut the bar. The only reason we cut that bar is if you cannot get that windshield off. But it looks like it came off pretty easily, which is great. And they brought the backboard in there, a C-collar. They probably extricated him properly, got him out, and noticed that he had lower extremity injuries, and that's when the decision was made to make it a critical case and get to the local trauma center.
Got it. Okay.
Well, Dr. Cardillo, one of the things I was thinking of when you mentioned the possible injuries that you have seen in accidents like this, and then I see where the vehicle is and everything that goes on. I mean, you have a very real risk of infection with any kind of open wound, but if you're trying to treat, let's say, compound fracture or an open fracture of some sort in a vehicle, in dirt, in grass, I mean, there's a very real risk beyond just the surgery with all of the complications that could come from something like this, correct?
Certainly. And whenever you have an open fracture, if that's what we're dealing with here, the risk of infection is very high. The bones don't have a very great vasculature to help fight infection. So we're always worried about open fractures, and those become immediate operative cases. And certainly he's going to be on antibiotics prophylactically. But certainly, I mean, he was probably partially contained in that vehicle, but you're absolutely right. That car flipped over multiple times. You can see the entire back of the vehicle is ripped off as well. So that car flipped over multiple times, maybe even end on end. Was jostled around in there, and a lot of damage to his body would have occurred. But I'm certain that they would not have taken him to the OR unless everything else was ruled out that would have made it very difficult to survive during surgery, especially on the lower extremities. Everything else would have had to have been ruled out. So it looks like we are dealing with isolated lower extremity injury. But I will tell you, pelvic fractures are quite substantial. They hemorrhage extensively. And so there's a lot of work that has to go on here. And by no means is he just, in free and clear here. He has severe injuries, most likely if he's in the OR that quickly. But yeah, we'll wait to see. I'm sure Harbor physicians will be giving a report when they get out of the OR, and they'll give us a stability update. Let's just hope that he has injuries that are not life-threatening at this point. But you're absolutely right. This is just the beginning. He's going to have to go through extensive work after this to get himself better and back to normal. And part of that is fighting off infection.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about that, looking down the road at recovering from any kind of injury where you have multiple fractures in your legs. This is months and months and months of rehab if he's able to recover.
Yeah, and we'll wait for the final report to see what the injury is. But you're absolutely correct. If he has a serious lower extremity injury, you're looking at almost a year plus of physical therapy, rehab, just really trying to strengthen, the muscles and get those bones healed again. But this is all speculative. We don't know exactly what the injury is at this point. But certainly we could think about all of the injuries that we have seen in our career. It's a big spectrum. But if he was shuffled to the ER or the OR that quickly, pretty confident he had either a pelvic fracture or a very large long bone fracture or an open fracture, something that would have required immediate operative intervention. Typically, when we have these sorts of accidents, we'll stabilize a patient, orthopedics will get involved. We will then, at that point, decipher what has to happen, what the level of urgency is, whether we can plot it out and plan it out. We typically don't rush to the OR right after an accident unless it is something that has to be fixed emergently, secondary to the possibility of hemorrhage, further infection, nerve involvement, things of that nature. So whatever he had certainly was serious enough to rush to the OR emergently. And we'll wait to find out what that answer is going to be, probably in a couple of hours.
Okay, Dr. Cardillo, stand by. We want you to stay with us for a little bit longer, but we have a programming note. Today's episode of General Hospital can be seen late tonight at 2:06 a.m. You can set your DVR right now. You're watching Eyewitness News. We have special breaking news coverage of an accident involving Tiger Woods in the Rolling Hills Estates area. You're looking at live pictures from Air 7 HD. This accident happened at 7:12 this morning, and we can tell you that Tiger Woods has undergone surgery, or perhaps is still in surgery, and suffered multiple leg injuries.
We don't know the cause. We do know that it was one car that was involved. Reaction has been pouring in from around the world regarding this. And Jack Nicklaus, the only golfer who has won more what they call major championships than Tiger Woods, has now made a comment. He and his wife, Barbara, just heard about Tiger's accident, and like everyone else, I'm quoting now, "We are deeply concerned. We want to offer him our heartfelt support and prayers at this difficult time. Please join us in wishing Tiger a successful surgery and all the best for a full recovery." Again, that is Jack Nicklaus, one of the greatest golfers of all time. Many people compare Tiger Woods to him. In fact, Jack Nicklaus, at one point when Tiger was playing as best as he could, Jack Nicklaus said, "Tiger Woods plays a game with which I'm not familiar." So for one of the greatest golfers of all time to say Tiger Woods was playing something that he couldn't even do, that's a remarkable statement. Let's go to Josh Haskell, who again is just on a ridge looking down upon this accident as they're just about to pull the vehicle Tiger Woods was driving this morning to get it up onto a flatbed. Josh?
Yeah, and no surprise they are having some trouble doing it just because of the magnitude of this crash. There's actually a part, Philip, that's been underneath the vehicle that they actually tried to reattach, it looks like, before the crane lifts the vehicle onto that flatbed tow truck we see parked in front of it. It is still in that same position, but they actually connected it to the crane another time, looks like just for reinforcement. And just you can see some of the debris still. Sheriff's deputies, they were able to collect some of that debris. And we actually, when I first arrived, as we pan out wide for a sec, you can see there was some debris further up on Hawthorne Boulevard. That has, of course, been removed as we see the car now moving, it looks like, out of this debris. Looks like maybe a good 20-25 feet from Hawthorne Boulevard is where it was resting, and they're moving it very slowly, as you can see. We are in Rolling Hills Estates and talking to someone who lives here. They told us that they did not hear the accident, which is pretty remarkable, but they did, of course, hear the response from the LA County Fire Department afterwards. And we are learning some new information, as you and Jovan have been reporting, from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. Captain James C. Power with the Lomita station said that they are not actively investigating a DUI. There was no obvious indication of a DUI. Jaws of life were not used, and they popped open the windshield. It took 6 minutes from the time of the accident for officials to arrive here on scene. And I can tell you that sunrise here was at 6:27 this morning. The accident happened at 7:12 a.m. And you can now see the car. Looks like they're trying still to put it upright. I'm seeing some more debris fall from the vehicle just I am now getting my first glimpse, Philip and Giovanna, at the front of the car, and the hood of the car just sitting upright, and there's some dirt and brush falling from the bottom right now. I don't know if you can see that in our picture. And I am seeing also for the first time the emblem of the Genesis Open, the golf tournament. That just happened this past weekend at Riviera Country Club in Pacific Palisades, that this vehicle belonged to, of course, for those tournaments. The sponsors, if it is a car company, they give the golfers or any athletes vehicle from the sponsor, and that I'm seeing the emblem on the right side of that car. You guys can probably see it as well.
Yeah, that is the Genesis Invitational, which, of course, they have courtesy cars for the players. And, of course, Tiger is the tournament host that we've mentioned. Again, a moment ago, we talked about Jack Nicklaus having weighed in on his reaction. He and his wife, Barbara. Jack Nicklaus, an icon in the golf community. But we've also talked throughout the day about how professional golfers and people around the world have been reacting to the accident involving Tiger Woods that has him either in surgery, as Giovanna mentioned, or hopefully, maybe he's out of surgery by now. We do not have word on that, but surgery for his leg injuries. But Justin Thomas, who Tiger Woods is considered his mentor. He's a current PGA player. He's getting ready to play at the WGC Workday Championship. And as you can imagine, talk for his press conference today quickly turned from the golf tournament to talking about one of his closest friends on the tour, Tiger Woods.
I mean, I'm sick to my stomach. You know, it hurts to see one of your, now my closest friends, you know, get in an accident. And, man, I just hope he's all right. Just worry for his kids, you know. I'm sure they're struggling.
You can just hear the emotion in his voice, and it is a very close-knit group of people, the PGA Tour players. Every tournament, every week, has no more than about 144 players that are invited. So you can imagine these guys are impacted very personally to this. And, you know, Giovanna, when he talked about his children, he's very close to his daughter and his son, and he played in a golf tournament with his son just this past December. So, and that was quite the rage around the world when Tiger Woods' son was shown off as a golf player.
Right, right. And we all know how driven Tiger Woods has been throughout his entire career, despite all of the many injuries that he sustained and suffered. But, you know, people are talking about whether he'll play golf again. I think right now the sentiment should be just let's hope that he is well enough to enjoy his family.
It has been an ongoing effort today to try to get that vehicle out of there. We reported early on the accident happened at about shortly after 7 a.m. LA County Sheriffs and Fire Department arriving at about 7:12. And as we look at the timeline, it was about 7:22. It took him about 10 minutes to get him out of that vehicle. And we talked with Dr. Cardillo a moment ago about it was easier for them probably, especially with the car on its side. So that means that if they tried to go through the door, they would have to climb down into it. So they just ripped the window off, the windshield off, and they took him out through the windshield, which is apparently quite common. They could stabilize him that way. They could get him out. But in all of that, by about 7:22, he was out and on his way to trauma care, and he has been at Harbor UCLA undergoing surgery for his injuries. We're told there are multiple leg injuries. But throughout all of that, here we are now at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:08, and they still haven't been able to get the vehicle away as the investigation has continued. So you can really see from Josh's shot there and that Air 7 shot, it was a task. I mean, it's not, we've seen more difficult tasks, obviously, but, you know, they've had to shut down Hawthorne Boulevard as they try to conduct this investigation, try to get that vehicle out of there, and eventually people will be able to go about their business. But they will be looking at this site because it is, as we've heard people say throughout the day, it is something that you're going to remember where you were when you heard about Tiger Woods' car accident. Now we're just hoping that he is able to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have the radio calls that authorities were putting out this morning right after the accident on Broadcastify. Let's listen into those.
Engine Squad 106, traffic collision, Hawthorne Boulevard, Palos Verdes Drive, north. Sheriff on scene. Quit 106, battalion 14, with engine squad 106 en route. Traffic goes in ALS now. Person's trapped. Sheriff on scene, Hawthorne Boulevard. LS radius driving north. Vehicle off the side of the road.
Again, those are the radio calls that went out this morning after Tiger Woods' accident at 7:12 this morning, again on Hawthorne Boulevard. We've been following this for a few hours now as we tried to glean more information about what happened. Investigators have been on the scene for several hours and will likely be there for many hours more. You see Air 7 HD over the scene there, and you see crews trying to remove the vehicle that Tiger was driving this morning. There have been some, talk about the car perhaps speeding. There's no evidence that the car that Tiger Woods was speeding in the vehicle, although we did hear from someone familiar with the area that just driving along, it's very hard not to speed because of the decline of that road, Hawthorne Boulevard, that you can easily reach 50, 60 miles an hour before you know it. But again, speed has not been ruled to be a factor, or authorities are not saying that it has been a factor. They do not know if he was speeding. Also, they're not investigating this as a DUI. There are no obvious indications of a DUI in this accident.
We want to go back to Dr. Cardillo now because, Doctor, I wanted to we are so concerned about Tiger Woods' well-being. I think many people around the world want to know as quickly as possible how he's doing, what are the conditions, what are the injuries, and we spoke of Harbor UCLA and their abilities and how great they are. My question is, how does that work? From a doctor's perspective, especially with somebody at this level, of Tiger Woods' level, there's going to be a message control here. So we should really be patient, yes? I mean, even if he's out of surgery, even if everything's fine, there are HIPAA rules that you have to follow. We might have to just simply be patient and wait. How does it go for you as a doctor when you're trying to release information like that?
You're absolutely right. And really what we do in these scenarios is we cut everything else out as far as the media is concerned. We're just taking care of the patient, and all of that becomes ancillary. And so, again, at one of the top facilities in America, they're going to follow all the rules, all the regulations. There are going to be no HIPAA leaks whatsoever. In fact, they aren't legally able until he or his family gives consent to really release what happened to him. That's a personal information for him. He has to release that information to the public or through his publicist. That's not something that any doctor or any nurse or anyone else in that facility can start talking about. So all of the information is highly confidential. You're absolutely correct. So we're gonna have to wait until the hospital releases a statement that is issued based upon his acceptance or his publicist or family's acceptance of that release of information. So we'll have to just wait patiently, knowing that he is in the best and most capable hands at this point. We look at that vehicle, we can see the cabin is very well preserved, okay? A lot of front and rear end damage. You can imagine in that car thrusting forward as it comes to a rapid stop when it hits a hard object and you thrust forward, airbags deploy, your chest hits those airbags as long as your head also is jostled around. But it's the lower extremities that get thrust forward into that under that dashboard, and that's where we get a lot of pelvic and femur fractures. And I'm pretty confident that's what we're dealing with. And so we'll see what happens. I'm sure those surgeons are going to be working diligently to stabilize and repair any damage, and they will be giving a report the moment it is appropriate.
Okay, Dr. Cardillo, thanks. Scott Reif is back above this in Air 7 HD, and Scott, you're getting a chance to really see the damage, the extent of that damage once the vehicle is upright.
Absolutely, Philip. And, from what we saw earlier this morning, I think we were first on scene around 10:30, 10:40. The vehicle looks a lot more intact right now that it's upright than it did when we first saw it this morning on its side, and we saw all the damage with the trees. And a lot of what we're seeing is actually somewhat good news. The cabin is intact, as we just heard quite a bit. It looks like they're clearing this rather quickly, a lot quicker than I thought they would, which sort of gives us an idea that Tiger is going to survive. Initially, when you have an accident, you don't know if it's a fatal. They may take a longer time to investigate the incident. The speed coming down the hill, we've talked a little bit about that. It could have just been on that morning commute. But one of the things, when you look at this entire scene, and we open up a little bit, Tiger is so fortunate that no one was headed southbound on Hawthorne Boulevard, because that just would have been a head-on collision at those speeds, probably a fatality. And then, as you mentioned earlier also, that it was only a feet or so from missing the telephone pole once he crossed those southbound lanes when he was headed northbound. So a lot of what we're seeing, especially as fast as they're clearing this, gives us the indication that Tiger for certain is going to survive. No one else involved, and Hawthorne Boulevard will be opened up, like I mentioned, a lot earlier, I think, than I initially speculated on. And it's interesting, you know, everybody is speculating on what happened, and my wife had a take on it that she thinks he might have just not been completely familiar with a car, because he got the vehicle, and, you know, the information, the entertainment systems in these vehicles are pretty complex these days. So obviously it's speculation, and we don't know. But also there was no skid marks on the roadway itself. So as he headed northbound coming down the hill at who knows what speed, it looks like whatever happened very suddenly. There was no chance to try and slow the vehicle. We didn't see any skid marks at all. But they're going to clear it a lot quicker than we initially thought, and it seems to me some of the information that we're getting overall is encouraging.
You just mentioned something that we don't even think about, because Tiger Woods spends a lot of time in Southern California. But if you're coming down, you know, if everybody that drives this area says that that's kind of a risky area because you get going faster than you're aware of, if he's unfamiliar with that area, that could sneak up on you as well. You know, this could be any number of things that caused this accident.
Yeah, it most certainly could, and like I said, it's very encouraging to see that the vehicle is somewhat intact. The cabin is. I mean, that really gives you an idea that, or gives you some aspect of maybe he's not as badly hurt as we initially thought. And so as they drag this vehicle up, they had to use a crane and actually lift it right off the wheels, and then there's a flatbed. They'll get it on there pretty quickly. We'll watch that process happen. If we tilt up a little bit with the camera, though, we may be able to see and push in for a moment. If they've cleared some of the debris, Chad, if you tilt up a little bit, we had a lot of debris on the roadway that the Sheriff's Department had marked. And that'll give us an indication as well on Hawthorne Boulevard. Keep tilting up a little bit. We've landed for fuel, so we haven't looked at this in a few moments, and it looks like they have. So that's another indicator, I think, that they're going to wrap up this investigation pretty quick. And once they have that vehicle up on the tow truck, once they have it righted and up on the tow truck, they may be able to open up Hawthorne Boulevard. So as I mentioned, everything is encouraging, certainly much more encouraging than what we initially saw around 10:30, 10:40 this morning when we saw this vehicle. And we were just getting reports. We didn't have confirmation it was Tiger. And then all of a sudden the information started to come to us. And certainly when we looked at it initially, we thought it could have been much worse than what we feel we know right now.
Yeah. And Scott, I don't know how close you are to the cutoff of traffic. If you could show us if there is, for people who are interested in what the traffic situation is around Hawthorne Boulevard. We understand that it is a popular thoroughway for local residents. I don't know if you can see if it doesn't appear to be. Yeah.
We'll bring
Not bad.
Yeah, we'll bring up Sky Map 7.
Yeah.
And fortunately, you've got a couple of major thoroughfares through here. And you can see it shut down at Palo Verde's Road or Drive, Hawthorne Boulevard in both directions, all the way up to Black Horse Road. But you've got a lot of alternates to go north-south through this area. Mm-hmm. So it may be a little inconvenience to some of the residents in the area, but it's not really causing a lot of gridlock as far as the drive is concerned. And from what we're seeing, we'll push back into this process of lifting that vehicle up, that SUV, and getting it onto the flatbed. I really believe, since we don't have any more debris on the road, that once they get the vehicle on the flatbed, we could see them reopen Hawthorne Boulevard much earlier than we originally thought.
Okay, Scott, thanks. And there will be a process. It seems to me like they'll probably unhook the crane and then just back the flatbed up and pull it up like they would tow any other vehicle away. Right now, as we see that developing, we are still concerned about Tiger Woods' condition. He has been undergoing surgery. Whether he is out of surgery or not, we do not know at this point, but a heavy media presence at Harbor UCLA. Let's go to Carlos Granda, who is standing by there and has an update for us.
Well, as you said, Philip, we're waiting for any information from the hospital, but so far, nothing. They have been completely silent about this. We don't know if there's going to be any updates coming up, but the last that we did hear, and this was, again, like you said, several hours ago, is that he is in surgery. And yes, there is, as you can imagine, a very heavy media presence here because this is a worldwide story. As we pan over, you can just see some of the cameras here, and they go all the way down the block, about almost 2 blocks, all the way down from all over the world, waiting for any information, any updates on the condition of Tiger Woods. Now, as you know, according to the fire department, he was brought here to Harbor UCLA Medical Center, and he was in serious condition, suffering multiple leg injuries, and that's when we went into surgery. As Dr. Cardillo said, that kind of surgery could last 4 to 6 hours. We're not exactly sure when it started or how it's going, or he could be out of surgery right now. But again, no information coming from the hospital. That's where we're waiting for to see if there's any kind of update on his condition. Earlier, his manager had said that please respect his privacy. So there's still questions whether or not the hospital is going to be allowed to release any information because there are federal regulations regarding information that you can give out about patients. So unless there's an okay from either family members or maybe his representative, we probably will not get any information here from the hospital. So that's what we're waiting for right now. But again, as you can imagine, people from all over the world, the media from all over the world, waiting for anything coming from the hospital regarding Tiger Woods' condition. And of course, everyone praying for the best, hoping that he's okay. But from seeing those images and from the descriptions that we've heard from law enforcement and from the fire department, it was a very serious accident, very serious injury. So again, we're all hoping that he will be okay. Yeah. Reporting live here at Harbor UCLA, I'm Carlos Granda, ABC 7 Eyewitness News. Back to you.
Thanks, Carlos, for that update. Indeed, we do hope that he will be okay. And let's check in with Dr. Anthony Cardillo again. If you're still with us, Dr. Cardillo, what other things are doctors, surgeons going to be watching out for in a surgery like this?
The big thing is, number one, hemodynamic stability. So making sure that blood loss is controlled. That's the biggest containment issue we have with these sorts of fractures, and making sure that you don't have blood loss. That's the biggest issue, number one. The number two is also blood clots, and also what we call fat emboli. Unfortunately, when the large bones fracture, it can release a lot of the fat that's in our bone marrow into the bloodstream. And that could lead to blood clots in the lung, leading to cardiovascular collapse. These are things that we're worried about as well. I'm pretty confident that they would have already ruled out anything life-threatening intracranially, anything in his cervical spine, anything in his thoracic cavity, anything intra-abdominally. A lot of times with these sort of accidents, because as you can imagine, that lower seatbelt comes across the lower abdominal area. We worry about a lot of intra-abdominal trauma, so splenic injuries, liver injuries. I'm sure that would have all been ruled out already before he went to the OR. We have CAT scans, ultrasounds, and diagnostic mechanisms to rule that out. So if we're only dealing with a lower extremity injury, the really big issue is going to be hemorrhage and then blood clots and fat emboli that can form. Absent of that, it's really the orthopedic surgeons working in conjunction with the trauma surgeons to fix whatever orthopedic injury occurred. And looking at this vehicle right here, I can tell you that cabin is pretty well preserved, but you can look to see the dashboard is a little bit off, so I'm sure his femur, his knees jammed right into that lower portion of the dashboard and most likely fractured all of those bony structures. That's a very common occurrence. We've been dealing with, in my career over 30 years now, this is a very common occurrence that we see in these sorts of motor vehicle accidents. This is pelvic fracture, femur fracture, knee injuries, and then also in the ankle and the tibia and fibula. We see this quite often, but the biggest concern, again, is going to be hemorrhaging and blood clots. As far as releasing information, I will tell you, in today's era, it is virtually impossible for anyone to release any information because these are privacy issues for patients. In fact, the hospital can't even announce that the patient is actually in their facility. That in of itself would be a HIPAA violation, to notify the public that there is a patient, specifically someone of this stature, in their facility. So I would not expect them to be releasing any information until this is vetted out through his family, through his manager, through his publicist, and that's the time at which they will give the okay to release any information. And typically, they're going to wait for the patient to allow that to happen. So it may be hours before we find out anything about his status and what happened.
Well, and Dr. Cardillo, I would also suggest COVID has reduced generic traffic in hospitals to almost non-existent, so the ability to control the message, so to speak, would probably even be greater, since we don't have the ability to just walk into a hospital right now.
You're 100% correct. In fact, we don't have anyone coming into any of the hospitals in LA County at all as visitors. So the only people in the hospital are the staff members. And I will tell you, HIPAA is of paramount importance to all of us. And everyone is well-versed and well-trained in the hospital systems to make sure information does not leak out, specifically because there are severe consequences if it does. And so everyone's going to be tight-lipped, as they should be, in releasing any information. And really the only information we should be receiving is that which Mr. Woods wants us to receive, either through himself or through his manager and publicist, those people that represent him and his interests. And so we ought to just be patient. Obviously, the most important factor here is, I will tell you firsthand, he is at one of the best facilities in America right now for this sort of accident. Harbor UCLA is one of the premier trauma centers in America. So I think all of us in America and the world need to know that Mr. Woods is being taken care of by perhaps the best teams we have out there right now.
And I think it's also very important what you mentioned, that we need to be patient and remember that anything you might hear regarding his condition is probably conjecture at this point, and we just need to wait and wait for the information to come out. Josh Haskell.
Exactly, and understand that. And he has family members involved as well, so that's a very good point, because they're also concerned as well, and they also want to have information. So as much as the media and the public wants to have information, you can imagine his poor family also waiting for information to get from the surgeons, from the staff on his status. And those are the people who really have to be worrying at this point, waiting for information. So our hearts go out to his family as they're waiting there in the hospital to get information from the medical team. So let's just let them all do their jobs. Let's not have any pressure from the media or any of the public outlets. Let the doctors do their job. Let the hospital do their job as best as they can to make sure he is safe. And the moment everything is stabilized, we'll have all the information presented to us.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Cardillo, thank you. Thank you. And stand by. Please don't go anywhere. We still want to talk to you a little bit more, but we do want to go to Josh Haskell. Josh.
Yeah, Giovanni, we're showing you right now the car is now on Hawthorne Boulevard, and sheriff's deputies, investigators, they've been removing some items from the car. I don't know if you can see a deputy right now holding what looks like some sort of a black box. They just took a bag out, and they have been filling their vehicles here with not just items from inside the car, but also parts of the car. We've been here about an hour, and I'm just amazed at this debris field here on Hawthorne Boulevard. Different parts of the car. Earlier we were showing you looked like were some oil or liquid from the vehicle. When it flipped over, it was on the road, and they were cleaning that up. And now you can see 3 sheriff's deputies looking inside the vehicle right now, removing items. Again, just a single occupant of that vehicle, Tiger Woods. And Philip and Giovanna, you guys have been talking about the windshield. We're, of course, showing you the view from the back of the car, but I was able to get my first glimpse of the front, and it is just remarkable how it is completely smashed in there. We have the latest information from LA County Fire that they used an axe and another tool similar to a big hook to pull out the windshield of this Genesis GV80. Jaws of life were not used.
Out to his family as they're waiting there in the hospital to get information from the medical team. So let's just let them all do their jobs. Let's not have any pressure from the media or any of the public outlets. Let the doctors do their job. Let the hospital do their job as best as they can to make sure he is safe. And the moment everything is stabilized, we'll have all the information presented to us.
Yep. Okay. Dr. Cardillo, thank you. Thank you. And stand by. Please don't go anywhere. We still want to talk to you a little bit more, but we do want to go to Josh Haskell. Josh.
Yeah, Giovanni, we're showing you right now the car is now on Hawthorne Boulevard, and sheriff's deputies, investigators, they've been removing some items from the car. I don't know if you can see a deputy right now holding what looks like some sort of a black box. They just took a bag out, and they have been filling their vehicles here with not just items from inside the car, but also parts of the car. We've been here about an hour, and I'm just amazed at this debris field here on Hawthorne Boulevard. Different parts of the car. Earlier we were showing you looked like were some oil or liquid from the vehicle. When it flipped over, it was on the road, and they were cleaning that up. And now you can see 3 sheriff's deputies looking inside the vehicle right now, removing items. Again, just a single occupant of that vehicle. Tiger Woods and Philip and Giovanna, you guys have been talking about the windshield. We're, of course, showing you the view from the back of the car, but I was able to get my first glimpse of the front, and it is just remarkable how it is completely smashed in there. We have the latest information from LA County Fire that they used an axe and another tool similar to a big hook to pull out the windshield of this Genesis GV80. Jaws of life were not used. The other tools, just those 2 other tools that I just mentioned. We also know from the Sheriff's Department that they are not actively investigating a DUI. There was no obvious indication of a DUI. And we know that it took authorities 6 minutes from the time of the accident for officials to arrive on scene. And I'm also been able to gather a little bit more information from those who live in this Rolling Hills Estates neighborhood. And I can tell you that the gentleman who is allowing us in this position, he told me remarkably, Philip and Giovanna, that he did not hear the accident. But I am told that one of his neighbors did hear it, called 911, and actually climbed down this hill that I'm on right now to help Tiger Woods. So on Hawthorne Boulevard, there's no homes that have a front entrance. It's just their backyards. We're standing at the edge of one of those backyards, and just imagine 7:12 in the morning, and you hear this noise, and you look out and you see a vehicle in that shape, and they climb down this hill that I'm on right now, a pretty steep hill, and that they were one of the first people to reach Tiger Woods. We don't know if there were any other vehicles on Hawthorne Boulevard. Highly likely that there were some vehicles that passed because it is a pretty busy road, and they might have stopped. Again, took 6 minutes from the time of the accident for officials to arrive on scene. And just keep thinking as I look at that wreckage that there was a person inside there who's of course at the hospital now where Carlos was reporting, and we're obviously just hoping for the best here. And the one neighbor that we were speaking with, he didn't know that it was Tiger Woods who was driving the vehicle until we told him, but he did hear of course the ambulances and fire department that arrived on scene. You can see some of those sheriff's deputies still here on scene trying to put together this accident, and we have not seen the car yet go on to a tow truck. This is the first time they're really getting to go inside. Philip and Giovanna, you can see them collecting some papers right now from our viewpoint as they try and put this scene together, and then they have been taking items from the vehicle and then putting it in the back of their patrol cars, and it looks like they will do this for quite some time until they really feel like they can let this vehicle leave the scene. In the distance behind that vehicle, there have been some still photographers that have been able to make it down here to get another view, but at this point Hawthorne Boulevard is still closed, and they are working this scene to try and piece this together. Of course, they have tools to help educate them on how fast the car was going, and that's definitely something they will look at in terms of this accident. I'll send it back to you.
Josh, you mentioned the front windshield was blown out, and I see that the back windshield also looks like it broke or is no longer there.
No, you are 100% right, Giovanna. The passenger windows are up, but I am looking at that window for the trunk, and it is completely gone. And I can tell you that once the vehicle was lifted from this debris field about 20 feet from Hawthorne Boulevard, the folks that work for the tow company and some sheriff deputies, they brought over more bags, and they were just collecting items, as I was mentioning, just this debris field on this road. And it looks like they're now kind of reaching in. You can see those front airbags where they were deployed. But yeah, quite a bit of glass was removed from that vehicle. We don't know if that happened when the accident happened, or maybe that was something that was done by the fire department. Unclear at this point, but still a very active investigation taking place right now.
So much damage to that vehicle, and just to think that Tiger Woods was in there, or anybody would be in there, as you mentioned, for 6 minutes, you know, very scary. Very, very scary.
And again, imagine 6 minutes with injuries that are life-threatening, just the inability to ease your own pain. You know, again, we have mentioned that Woods was the occupant of this Genesis GV80 SUV, and the accident happened north on Hawthorne Boulevard. But this is an image there just to the right at the golf tournament. Genesis USA Instagram account a couple of days ago posted this, and it does appear to be a vehicle strikingly similar to the one that is now damaged beyond repair. And it is important to note, whenever you host a golf tournament, this one at Riviera, in many cases there are any number of sponsors that are a part of the event, and courtesy cars often come for dignitaries, whether they are players or hosts. In this circumstance, Tiger Woods is the host of the golf tournament. He was not playing because he's still recovering from, I believe, his 5th back surgery that happened back in December. So he was hoping to start playing again, and maybe getting able to play in April at the Masters golf tournament. He even mentioned that on Sunday, that he hoped he would be able to. The LA Times is reporting a source familiar with his treatment said that Woods' injuries included a shattered ankle. So that is potentially an injury. We do know that he had multiple leg injuries. According to his manager and agent, Mark Steinberg, he said he's currently in surgery, and we thank you for your privacy and support. And as we talked with Dr. Cardillo a moment ago, we do want to respect that, because there's really so little information that is going to be available on his condition until the family decides that they want that information released. But at this point, we're just hopeful he's going to survive this. It does appear as if the injuries are non-life-threatening due to the reports that we've heard, but they are certainly significant. And you can see the damage to that vehicle. When it happened this morning, it was reported as his injuries being moderate to critical. So he was, Sheriff Alex Villanueva actually is quoted as saying he's lucky to be alive. And we've seen where that vehicle left the road and went through the woods, and how close he came to a telephone pole really reiterates what Sheriff Villanueva said. Regardless of Tiger's injuries at this point, he is lucky to have survived what happened this morning. I believe we have Scott Reif still in Air 7. Scott, you know, if you'd want to expand on what we were just talking about. I mean, the damage to the vehicle is one thing, but where it left the road and went through the woods off the road, that shows you how close things were.
Yeah, Philip, not only that, so close to the telephone pole and those trees, but if there would have been a vehicle traveling the opposite direction, this more than likely would have been a fatal collision. It's just so fortunate at that time of the morning, coming northbound at a high rate of speed down that hill, no one was traveling southbound up the hill, because that really could have been tragic. And as we look at the vehicle being loaded up onto the flatbed right now, it's amazing how much better it looks from this angle than it did when it was on its side. So early this morning when we were first here and we took a look at it, it was really hard to assess how much damage was done to the inside of the driver's compartment of that vehicle. It looks better now from this angle than it did early on. But if we follow the path a little bit here and we start to tilt up, we'll show you exactly what happened, or what we believe happened from the trail. In the bushes right there, if you go to a little bit to the right, there you go, you're going to see Chad is with me, and I think it's his first time over the scene. Why don't you tilt up a little bit, and we'll follow it from that direction. But here on the top of your screen, right there, if you would push in to the center median, we believe that's where the vehicle finally initially lost control. Took out that sign, and then come towards us, Chad. Follow down slowly. I'll try and guide you. As I said, he's just over the scene with me for the first time. Barely missed that pole there in the center of your screen, and then went to the right of that, your right side, Chad, and then came down through those trees, come down a little further south, now towards us, and then finally found its resting place right in there on the other side of that tree. You tilt up a little bit, and you can see all the damage there. So if it would have, that vehicle had hit the telephone pole, or if we had oncoming traffic, this could have been a much different story. And from what we saw early on this morning, it was really hard to assess the damage to the vehicle. But it looks like investigators are now done with their investigation. They've taken their pictures. They've taken out all the belongings. They're loading this vehicle onto the flatbed. And the fact that they don't believe that alcohol was involved, the fact that no one else was involved in this accident, means they can wrap up this investigation, I think, a little sooner than we initially sort of speculated about. That'll be good news for the drive-through here. And once again, you know, all our hearts are going out to Tiger Woods. We just hope that he's going to be okay and he's going to survive these injuries and be back.
Yeah, 100%. Sure. Scott, another question just real quick before you go. Do you know, do we know where this vehicle is headed?
No, I mean, we don't have any information on where the vehicle is headed. We can just tell from the path that the vehicle was headed northbound coming down the hill here on Hawthorne Boulevard. So besides that, I have no other information on where he may have been headed.
No, actually where they will take this vehicle to investigate it further is what I mean.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I don't know. But we'd have to talk to the Sheriff's Department about that, but they don't really release that information. Sometimes we'll follow the vehicle. And we'll find out that way. I don't know if Jay might get that information, but right now that hasn't been released to me.
Okay.
Well, one of the things that they will do is these vehicles in 2021 have so many computers on them. They're probably going to be able to pull data from the vehicle's computer system to help them with their investigation. It depends on how far this goes. I mean, as you mentioned, Giovanna, the Sheriff's Department says there are no obvious signs of alcohol. They're not actively investigating this as a DUI case. But, you know, if they have to continue looking into this, they can actually pull information from the vehicle's computer system, which might show, you know, in many cases, if there was a person that cut him off. There's going to be more of an investigation here, and a lot of information will be coming out in the days and weeks to come. But right now, I think most people are just happy Tiger Woods survived the accident and made it to the hospital where he is getting treatment for his injuries. We do not know if he is out of surgery at this point or not, but multiple leg injuries. And at this point, it's just the end of the investigation here on site. Elsewhere, it will continue, and it could take quite some time, we've heard from the Sheriff's Department, before they have any kind of answer as to what happened. But it could be just any number of things, that is for sure.
Yeah, and if you are just joining us, this accident happened at 7:12 this morning in the Rolling Hills Estates area, very close to Rancho Palos Verdes. Tiger Woods is now undergoing surgery, or perhaps is out of surgery. We do not know. At Harbor UCLA Hospital, and we have Harbor UCLA Medical Center, and we have Dr. Cardillo on the line, I believe, with Mend Urgent Care. Dr. Cardillo, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, if we could just recap for viewers who might be joining us now, what kind of surgery Tiger Woods may be undergoing now, based on what we know and what we believe to have happened is that he has multiple leg injuries, assuming fractures.
Certainly. So at this juncture, looking at this vehicle, the cabin is intact, a lot of front end damage, obviously. It's pretty confident he's, you know, the reports are accurate. He has lower extremity injury. And what we're really concerned about under that scenario is, number one, hemorrhaging and bleeding excessively in the pelvis area and in those large bones, particularly the femur. So our thigh bones, they will hemorrhage quite extensively if you break them. You know, just imagine, you know, if that bone were to break in half, we have a very large artery, the femoral artery and the femoral vein coming right down parallel to those bony structures. And so you can tear right into those large vessels that are in our groin area, coming down our thigh. Those are big, big blood vessels that are in that region that can be disrupted with large bony fractures. Also, the pelvis is a large network of vasculature that we worry about in pelvic injuries that can hemorrhage excessively, that needs to be repaired operatively. So that's all. These are all the things that we're going to be finding out as time evolves. I will tell you, they would not have taken him to the OR unless he was hemorrhaging excessively and they needed to either embolize or surgically repair those vessels that were bleeding. But they would not have taken him to the OR if he had other life-threatening injuries, either in his skull or in his chest or in his intra-abdominal cavity. So any intracranial, intrathoracic, or any intra-abdominal injuries would have been dealt with first before they had to go into the lower extremities, unless he was bleeding excessively, and that was the problem they had to address. But if it was just a straightforward large fracture, which you can imagine as your knees plow right into that dashboard as you come to a rapid deceleration, you're going to have some large bony fractures. I will say, looking at those skid marks that are onto the grass, he just nearly missed that pole, that lighting pole there. That would have been a disaster. Most of the deaths that we see in motor vehicle accidents stem from people crashing into light posts like that, even with an airbag, even with the seatbelt. That level of deceleration is pretty rapid and firm, and you can tear a lot of your intrathoracic vessels and intra-abdominal vessels and bleed to death. So he's very lucky he missed that pole and went into the shrubs there that sort of slowed down the forces, so to speak. But certainly when that car came to a quick stop is when his body was thrust under the dashboard, and that's where he sustained the lower extremity injuries that they're most likely repairing right now. But obviously all of this is conjecture. All of this is speculation. We will all have to wait patiently until the hospital personnel release information after he has given, or his publicist has given, the word to do so.
Well, Dr. Cardilla, that is a perfect transition to Carlos Granda, who is at the hospital right now, and apparently there is a statement of some manner that is coming from Harbor-UCLA. Carlos?
Well, the statement is basically saying they cannot say anything, and as Dr. Cardillo mentioned, it's because of all the federal regulations. They're what's called the HIPAA laws, and they very strict about privacy with people that are in hospitals or any kind of medical conditions of people that are injured or in hospitals receiving medical treatment. And this is what the hospital said. It said, quote, Harbor-UCLA Medical Center cannot confirm or deny whether an individual is a patient due to patient privacy laws. In addition, Harbor-UCLA Medical Center leadership and staff will not be conducting any interviews at this time. And again, that's because of those very strict privacy laws. It has to be either a family member or a representative of the patient, or the patient himself, in this case Tiger Woods, which likely will not happen for a while because he was in surgery. So again, whether or not we're going to get any information from here, we still do not know. It could happen if a family member allows it, or the representative says yes, let them know that he is out of surgery and anything on his condition. But again, as of this moment, the hospital is saying they cannot even confirm or deny that he is here. We did get that earlier. That was the word from the LA County Fire Department when he was transported, and that's how that information got out. But again, the hospital is not even confirming or denying that Tiger Woods is here and will not be conducting any interviews. They say at this time. Again, at this time means it could be later on, but that's what we're here waiting for. Back to you.
Carlos, I think you would agree, as a father, we can understand this. You have two children, you have a mother, you have family members around the country and the world, you have very close people to you. You want to be able to call and tell these people how you're doing, or you want somebody before it gets out on the media.
Well, absolutely, and everyone has a right to privacy, especially when it comes with your medical condition. That is something that is very personal. You don't want it necessarily going out there, but of course, he is a very public figure, and there are some different rules for public figures, but not when it comes to medical treatment or medical information, and that is something that, of course, probably he'll want to release and give his condition, but not right now, and not anytime soon, you know, because right now this just happened a few hours ago, so you want to make sure that everything is taken care of. He's okay. The family members, you know, they all know his condition before it starts getting out into the media.
Okay. Carlos, thanks much.
Carlos, thank you. And we continue our live coverage here of breaking news. Tiger Woods involved in a car crash in Rancho Palos Verdes, actually the Rolling Hills Estates area. LA County Sheriff's Department saying earlier this morning that the single car crash happened just after 7. We just heard from Carlos that Tiger Woods was taken to Harbor-UCLA. Harbor-UCLA not confirming or denying that Tiger Woods is there. We understand that's due to privacy laws. Earlier, Mark Steinberg Tiger Woods' agent telling ESPN that he suffered multiple leg injuries and is currently in surgery. And so we are just waiting to get more information about that surgery and about the extent of Tiger Woods' injuries. But at this point, Philip, you said it best, we all just need to be patient.
Well, and as Scott Wright rejoins us now, Scott, when we were listening to not only Carlos, but then Giovanna with Tiger Woods' condition, the one thing I was looking at was the amount of debris. That vehicle looked like it was still intact in that shot there on the right. But watching the tow truck personnel lug all of that all those parts and just having to heave them into the back makes you realize there was a lot that happened before it ended up on its side.
Yeah, that vehicle went a long way before it ended up on its side there. And I think the investigation, as far as the Sheriff's Department is concerned, at least on the scene investigation for the most part, is over now. They've loaded the car onto the tow truck. It's just the wreckage crews now making sure they get all the pieces of the vehicle onto the other tow, and then they'll move away. But you're right, there are a lot of pieces. This car just completely came apart, but it's amazing how far it went. I mean, it might be 300 or 400 yards in total, maybe a little less than that, closer to 250 or 3. That entire stretch that the vehicle traveled before it came to a stop. And I think there's two aspects to this right now, and one you've talked about extensively, and that's Tiger Woods' condition. The other one is what happened here. Now, it's 7:12 in the morning. It's daylight. It is coming downhill. It is somewhat easy to lose control of a vehicle if something comes out in front of you. But what exactly happened here is the other aspect. How did the vehicle lurch up onto that center divider, or why? Mechanical problem? A coyote on the roadway? There's all sorts of speculation or ideas of what may have happened, and that's what investigators are looking at now. So they're going to go through that. They'll talk to Tiger. They'll probably get a really good idea exactly what happened. But, you know, fortunately, we're reporting that we believe that he's going to recover, or we believe that his injuries are not life-threatening, and we hope that he's going to fully recover.
All right. Scott, thank you very much. I mean, it's just incredible what we're looking at here. Just ask, where were we going to go again with this? Okay, so earlier, when we were all just trying to gather and figure out what had happened because information was just coming in, we did get initial calls as to what was happening and the initial 911 calls and the radio traffic. So we have an opportunity to listen to the initial calls that went regarding this accident.
Engine Squad 106. Traffic collision, Hawthorne Boulevard, Hospitalized Drive, north. Sheriff on scene. Clear 106, Battalion 14 with Engine Squad 106 en route. Traffic collision EOS now. Person's trapped. Sheriff on scene, Hawthorne Boulevard, Hospitalized Drive, north. Vehicle off the side of the road.
And one of the things that you heard there was persons trapped, but we've now subsequently found out it was a single individual in that vehicle and only one car at this point, we believe, involved in the accident, and it was Tiger Woods, and he had been trapped in that vehicle and had to be rescued by firefighters through the windshield. They pulled the windshield off, took him out with moderate to critical injuries. And again, as you've heard throughout the day, it took them about 6 or 7 minutes once they got there to get him out. In total, from the moment of the accident to when he was transported from the hospital or to the hospital, it was about 20 minutes or so. So incredible, very quick work here. But Giovanna, you mentioned it earlier, being trapped in a vehicle for upwards of 6 minutes with the type of injuries that he likely had, the trauma for just the anxiety of it all, just the pain, the pain caused with that type of injury can cause damage as well.
And not being able to move your legs, Philip, and struggling and trying to, first of all, the shock, right? And the trauma of the shock of being in this accident and having the car the vehicle you're in roll over. We don't know if it rolled over. We don't know if it rolled over several times. But just the trauma of that impact, you know, and then finding yourself trapped and not being able to move your legs. We assume, we're speculating here, but still, under any of those circumstances, it must have been very, very traumatic and difficult.
Giovanna, I'm not sure if Dr. Cardillo is still with us. He might be. And Dr. Cardillo, what I guess I was getting at when I think of the traumatic injuries a person could experience in a car like that, how concerned are you? And again, we are not in this moment talking about Tiger Woods' condition. I'm simply asking, how dangerous is shock to a human being when they're in that kind of pain because of that kind of accident?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And obviously, you just imagine that car being turned over like this. And I talked to all my friends and family members about this exact thing. These are some of my fears, having been a EMT rolling up on these scenes. When cars flip over like this, you can imagine being trapped in a vehicle. You are incredibly disoriented. You don't know where you are, which way is up, which way is down. When the car's upside down, you're hanging, and that seatbelt has got you clinched in there. Sometimes you can't even undo the seatbelt because it's so tightly pushed up against your body. It's hard to even become released from that. You're confused, you're disoriented. There could have been some head trauma. Additionally, your cellular phone goes flying somewhere in the car. You usually can't find it, even summon for help. That's why it's always wise to put your cell phone in your glove box or somewhere where it's contained so you have access to it should a car flip over like this. But it's important to realize when these accidents happen, the passenger is incredibly disoriented, very confused, and then if they have a serious injury and they are hemorrhaging, they will go into shock, which is low blood pressure, therefore decreased blood supply to the brain, and that's where you have even more alteration in mental status. That may be why they called this a critical case, because he could have been disoriented at the scene when they arrived. I will say, looking at those numbers, again, a testimonial to how good we have it here in LA with our county fire department and city fire department. A 6-minute response time with a very rapid extrication is just phenomenal, especially if he was hemorrhaging, because that time is of the essence at that point. So it's important to realize that these accidents, even though that cabin looks intact, he could have been jostled around severely and losing blood acutely and having major trauma, even though the cabin was spared. So, yeah, I definitely agree that he was in very, very poor status when they arrived on the scene.
Okay, Dr. Cardillo, thank you. Thank you much, because I think for people who haven't ever suffered that kind of injury, it might just think, oh, well, he had leg injuries, but very real worry when it comes to shock, because shock can be such a damaging thing for people. Now, the thing about Tiger Woods is we've talked about how he transcends golf. He is a person that everyone knows about, whether you follow golf or not, and he may cause the casual person to watch golf. Well, the PGA Tour is underway. They played at the Riviera just this past weekend, the Genesis Invitational, of which Tiger was the host. They've now moved on to their next site, and many golfers would be doing press conferences today, a Tuesday, in advance of the next golf tournament. That's when Justin Thomas spoke today about what should have been the golf tournament, but instead became his reaction to his mentor and close friend Tiger Woods being involved in this accident here in Southern California.
I mean, I'm sick to my stomach. You know, it hurts to see one of your, now my closest friends, you know, get in an accident. And man, I just hope he's all right. Just worry for his kids, you know. I'm sure they're struggling.
You hear the emotion in his words there, his, concerns for Tiger Woods' family and children. We're going to check back in with Scott Reif. Scott is still over the scene as the vehicle that Tiger Woods was driving, that vehicle that rolled over and was in an accident, is now being taken away. Scott.
Yeah, we're watching the tow truck pull away with that Genesis GV80 that Tiger Woods was driving early this morning about 7:12. When he lost control of that vehicle for some reason, heading northbound on Hawthorne Boulevard, coming down the hill, the vehicle did overturn at least once. It went through oncoming, or I should say into the opposite direction of traffic. Fortunately, there was no other vehicles on the roadway. That certainly could have been an incident in which someone could have been killed. Barely missed a telephone pole and then ended up on that side of the ridgeline there. They've been investigating since about 7:12 this morning, I think 6 minutes after the initial report. They said they arrived on scene. Tiger has been, as you reported earlier, taken to Harbor General Hospital. He's having surgery on lower extremity extremity injuries, we understand, but we do not think it is life-threatening, so that is good news. And once we got a better look at the vehicle, when it wasn't on its side, when a crane picked it up and we could actually see it, there wasn't as much damage to the driver's compartment as what we originally saw, what we originally thought, because it was kind of hidden when it was on its side. So that was encouraging for us as far as what the vehicle went through and what he went through in the actual accident. As far as exactly what happened, investigators will have to look into that. We don't have any other information at this time besides the direction, time of the morning, 7:12 this morning approximately, and no other vehicles were involved. So they have to look into that. But right now it looks like no crime was committed, and that's why they're just going to clear this very quickly. I believe that Hawthorne Boulevard will probably be reopened sometime soon, traveling north and southbound to the Palos Verdes area. So that'll help some of the residents. There were a few communities where it was going to be really hard to get to your house with that closure. You had to go around. As far as just through traffic in the area, it didn't affect traffic that much, but there were some residents that may not have been able to get right back into their homes easily. And I think Hawthorne Boulevard, as you can see, it's been reopened there on the northbound side. They're leaving south. We have no idea where they're going to take the vehicle, but the authorities will want to be able to look at it once again if they decide to further the investigation. Right now, they'll take it to a tow yard where LA County Sheriff's deputies who are in charge of the investigation can get another look at it if they so choose to, if there's any reason to. But certainly, this happened early morning hours. It was daylight out. They'll be looking into exactly what happened and what caused Tiger Woods to lose control of that vehicle, what distracted him. And we are at least happy to report that his injuries are not life-threatening at this point. That's what we believe. And we're happy to report that no one else was involved. So a lot to find out about this incident. But overall, when we look at the condition of that vehicle, the speed that it was traveling, how it mowed down all those trees, we really look at the fact that it could have been a lot worse.
Yes, Scott, as Alex Villanueva, the sheriff, has said that he is very lucky to be alive considering the damage of that car and the how it happened. So we're very grateful for that. We're still continuing to watch Air 7 live pictures over the air. I'm Ellen Leyva taking over Eyewitness News at 3 o'clock, and Colleen Sullivan is with me now. We are continuing to follow this breaking news. Golfing great Tiger Woods injured in a very serious accident in Palos Verdes. He is now undergoing...
On the air with an update on that breaking news that we've been following all afternoon. Golf legend Tiger Woods hospitalized after being seriously injured in a car crash in Los Angeles. You see the car there. We're now getting an update from the LA County Sheriff. Let's listen in.
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Mendoza, captain of the Sheriff's Information Bureau. Thank you for coming to this press conference to discuss a traffic collision which occurred this morning involving Eldrick Tiger Woods. Joining Sheriff Villanueva is Lomita Station Captain James Powers and other members of the executive command staff. Also joining us here today is LA County Fire Chief Gerald Osby. Now I would like to introduce the Sheriff of Los Angeles County, Alex Villanueva.
Thank you, Captain Mendoza. Today at 7:12 in the morning, Lomita Sheriff Station received a call of a solo vehicle collision in Hawthorne Boulevard, north of Palos Verdes Drive. We arrived on scene at 7:18 a.m. and discovered the solo vehicle collision, and the sole occupant was, again, Tiger Woods. And deputies, at the time, they did not see any evidence of impairment, anything that of concern. Obviously, the life-saving measures that had to be taken for the occupant of the vehicle, and Chief Osby will speak to that regard. And it was a solo vehicle. Unfortunately, during the course of the investigation of this, there was another traffic collision that happened with people being looky-loos. But that, thankfully, there was no injuries associated with that. The vehicle traveled several hundred feet from the center divider at the intersection and rested on the west side of the road in the brush, sustained major damage to the vehicle. You've seen all the images of that. And with that, our Lomita Sheriff Station will be conducting the traffic investigation, and it'll take from days to several weeks to get the whole thing together. Once the investigation is completed, we will provide a detailed report. It'll be available, based on Public Record Act request, and we will not discuss it any further after that point. But at this point, I want to introduce Chief Darrell Osby, LA County Fire Department.
Good afternoon. I'm Fire Chief Darrell Osby of the Los Angeles County Fire Department. At approximately 7:22 this morning, resources from Los Angeles County Fire Station 106 received a report of a solo vehicle accident at the intersection of Hawthorne Boulevard and Palos Verdes Drive North in Rolling Hills Estates. Upon arrival of the scene of the incident with sheriffs on scene, resources and personnel from the Los Angeles County Fire Department observed a single rollover vehicle incident with one person trapped. The person trapped was extricated by the Los Angeles County Fire Department personnel. Earlier, it was stated that the jaws of life was utilized to extricate the person trapped. It was later determined by our personnel that a Halligan tube, which is used for prying, and an axe was also used to pry the person free from the vehicle. The person was packaged at the incident in stable condition with serious injuries, and because of the fact that they needed to be extricated, they were transported to Harbor UCLA Hospital. Because of the extrication, and Harbor Hospital is also a trauma center. As indicated earlier, there's also a second vehicle accident with no injuries. Thank you.
And the vehicle involved is a 2021 Genesis, es a mid-size SUV. Para español, a las 7:12 de la mañana en la calle Hawthorne, rumbo al norte, por la intersección de Palos Verdes Drive, hubo un accidente automovilístico de un solo vehículo donde el vehículo volcó varias veces y cayó a las orillas del lado oeste.
And so we have just learned, to recap, the Los Angeles County Sheriff saying once again that this accident happened, a solo vehicle collision at 7:12 a.m. Pacific time on Hawthorne Boulevard. He says that 6 minutes later at 7:18, emergency responders were able to arrive on scene. He says that based on their observation, there was no evidence of impairment, that car, as you see it there, that it ended on its side. He says that it traveled about several hundred feet off of the road. And at this point, they're going to take several weeks to investigate. I'd like to bring in our Kana Whitworth, who is outside of Harbor UCLA Medical Center. Kana, what are you learning?
So, Lindsay, Tiger Woods' agent said that the 45-year-old champion golfer suffered multiple leg injuries in that accident and that he was rushed to the hospital here for emergency surgery. You heard officials there confirming that he is here at Harbor UCLA Medical Center. Now, this hospital, once word was out that he was here, I'm telling you, it is swarmed with media. I'm leaving my mask on because there's so many people around. This hospital is less than 5 miles away from where this accident happened. And so, as you mentioned, authorities were quick to respond. And while there were rumors that they needed the jaws of life to get him out, as it turns out, they were able to pop off the windshield and actually remove Tiger Woods from the car that way, and then again rush him here to the hospital for emergency surgery. Now, this accident, this all comes as Tiger Woods was recovering from his 5th back surgery. And this accident happened early in the morning, and authorities are saying at this point, Lindsay, they're not investigating this as a DUI crash at all. He was here in California to host a PGA event and to film outtakes for Golf TV, Lindsay.
All right, Kana, thank you. If you'll stick with us for a moment, because now we believe that the sheriff is participating in a Q&A with the media and also the fire chief you see there.
Exactly what was said is unknown, but he was conscious. Our personnel make an assessment to make a determination of their level of consciousness, make sure that they're breathing, control any serious bleeding, and then control and address any serious injuries. It was brought to my attention that he had serious leg injuries, and that was assessed at the incident. The jaws of life are used as part of a package to extricate people that are trapped in vehicles. But it was later determined and brought to the attention that the jaws of life were not used to extricate Tiger Woods. We used a Halligan tool, which is a tool used for prying, and we also used an axe to pry him from the vehicle. He was taken from the vehicle with a collar and backboard for spinal precautions. He was had the proper splints. Because of the nature of the incident being a solo vehicle rollover and the fact that it required an extrication that met trauma center criteria, the nearest trauma center to the area is Harbor UCLA Hospital, where he was transported in serious but stable condition.
Which leg?
That I do not know. It was my understanding that he had serious injuries to both legs.
Both legs. Chief, this was his decision to go to Harbor UCLA, or you took him to the closest emergency room. Given his condition at the time, was it that severe? That's what you had to do?
The determination of where to be transported was made by the paramedics and the captain unseen. The reason that Tiger Woods was transported to Harbor UCLA Hospital is because it's a trauma center criteria. Because of the nature of the incident, it was a solo roller vehicle and the damage to the vehicle, and then it also required him to be extricated. That's one of the criteria that meets trauma center criteria. Therefore, he was transported to the nearest trauma center, which is Harbor UCLA Hospital.
Was he airlifted, and can you tell us if he had injuries anywhere other than his legs, and were any of those injuries critical?
It was he was not airlifted. There were no other life-endangering injuries to my knowledge.
Sheriff, wait a minute, question if you would. I know it's a little early. The investigators haven't done all their stuff on that, but any indication of the speed at the time that the vehicle lost control over the center divider? All the reporters here have talked to neighbors saying you're going down that hill, you take your foot off the brakes, you're at 50 plus before you know it. Any indication how fast that vehicle may have been going at the time it flipped?
Well, at the time it crossed the center divider to the point that it rested was several hundred feet away. So obviously that indicates they were going at a greater speed than normal. However, because it is downhill, it slopes, and it also the curves, that area has a high frequency of accidents. It's not uncommon.
Any skid marks or anything indicating that he tried to brake or stop?
No skid marks, no braking. So apparently the first contact was with the center median, and from there then crossed into the opposing lane of traffic, hit the curb, hit a tree, and there was several rollovers during that process.
They haven't given you any kind of a preliminary indication in excess of 45, 50, 55 miles an hour.
That they're going to have to figure that one out. That's why the traffic investigators make the big bucks that they make.
Sheriff, what can you tell us about his condition now? Are you still in touch with Mr. Woods' team?
We've reached out. We've been in touch with his manager, and they don't want to release anything on his condition right now.
We hear that he's out of surgery and perhaps been moved to his own room, Sheriff?
All we know that a serious condition as a result of the accident, and that's about all they want to say.
You looking at weather as a factor in this accident, Sheriff Villanueva?
Weather is not a factor.
Sheriff, get him out of the car. How long was that process?
Well, we arrived on scene at 7:18. They were notified within 4 minutes, and
we'll have to get the time.
We got the call from the Sheriff Department at approximately 7:22 this morning. Our resources arrived on scene at approximately 7:28. I don't have the information right now in relation to how long it took to extricate him from the vehicle.
Do you have any indication if there were drugs or medications involved? Why he was living that way?
No.
Who called it in? Did someone call 911, a bystander? And is there any indication that was sleeping?
we had a neighbor called 911. That's how the call was received at the station. No evidence of impairment this time. That'll be subject to the investigation.
You say no evidence of impairment. What impairments are you looking at?
Well, we're looking at signs of under the influence of either narcotics, medication, alcohol, odor of alcohol, all these different things that would give you an idea in their behavior, but there was none present. That now we're going beyond what we have at the time, so that'll take the investigators will have to figure that one out.
I understand some vehicles now have essentially a black box that reports certain information about how fast the car is going, did airbags deploy, telemetry, that sort of thing. Did this vehicle have that? Will you get information from that in the investigation?
The investigators will be able to, if they have it, they'll be able to have that and download it, and that will give us a good idea.
Was any of Tiger's team following the vehicle? Was this him solo?
Not that we're aware of.
Sheriff, you said that he was conscious, I believe. Was he able to communicate how much pain he was in, whether or not, was he able to communicate at all?
He was able to communicate, and he was conscious. I'll leave it at that. La velocidad no sabemos cuánto es, pero era considerable según el punto de partida de donde cruzó la parte mediana de la calle y donde cayó al otro lado eran varios cientos de pies. Y obviamente eso es una velocidad acelerante que se necesita para cubrir esa distancia. Hay una curva y está cuesta abajo a la misma vez.
Sheriff, do you know how long he was in the car before 911 arrived? Did he say at all how long he'd been waiting?
Well, we got the call at 7:12, and that came from the neighbors, so we have to assume they made that call almost immediately as soon as it happened, because the neighbors are sitting right within 50 feet of the location. So
they saw the crash happen.
If they didn't see it, they heard it, because it's literally happened right at their doorstep.
This is a courtesy car that he was driving, a Genesis courtesy car, correct?
That is correct.
And is it possible that Mr. Woods was on the phone when this accident occurred? Or is this one of the factors that we're going to be considering?
That's something we'll have to explore. The investigators will have to ascertain that, if it was distracted driving.
Can you describe how the axe and the special tool were used to extricate from the vehicle? I mean, as far as the doors go, I mean, how were the tools used for this process?
Okay. As it pertains to the vehicle, as articulated earlier, it was a rollover accident, and so Tiger Woods was trapped inside the vehicle. So our firefighters and our firefighter paramedics used the pry bar, they call it Halligan tool, and the axe to pry parts of the vehicle away from him, so they were able to safely extricate him from the vehicle.
At what point did you realize it was Tiger Woods? Did he identify himself? Did they check his license? How did you know who it was?
They recognized him, and he identified himself as well.
Sheriff, did you say no blood was drawn at the scene from Tiger?
No, we don't have that capability, nor do we want it.
Sheriff Villanueva, the accident crime scene has taken a long time. It's been there now for several hours. Just moving the car now. Is there a reason so much time has been taken at this crime scene? Are there certain factors you're looking at? Are there certain pieces of evidence you're hoping to find? Or is it simply the fact that this is Tiger Woods and this is the way we're going to handle it?
Well, any serious accident of this nature is going to take time. It usually takes hours, and removing the vehicle is one of the last steps, and they've done all their markers, taken all their measurements, gathered up all the stuff, and then 3 or 4 hours is pretty normal, actually.
The celebrity component is not playing a factor?
I don't think that'll play a factor in it.
Were the neighbors approached, like, checking on his well-being? Did they, like, make it to the site and actually make contact with him?
No, they did not. No, there's a bluff. They're sitting about 20 feet above the place where the vehicle came to arrest.
Okay, Sheriff, could you talk a little bit about if he was able to stand after he was taken out? Was he able to take a couple of steps? Can you talk a little bit about what that looked like?
He was not able to get up, no. That's not an option.
Did Tiger Woods ask you to contact anyone for him? Did he ask you to contact a specific member of his family or a specific member of his team that was here for the golf tournament at this point?
At a later time at the hospital.
At the hospital he did, but not at the scene.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you clarify?
He did at the hospital, but not at the scene.
He asked you to contact
Yes.
a member of his family.
Who was it?
A member of his team.
Oh, a member of his team.
Thank you.
Can you talk about the conditions inside the car?
Huh?
Can you talk about the conditions inside the car? Was the trap was able to move at all?
Well, the interior of the cabinet of the vehicle was more or less intact. The front end was totally destroyed. The bumpers, everything was destroyed. Airbags deployed, all of that. And however, thankfully, the interior was more or less intact, which kind of gave him the cushion to survive what's otherwise would have been a fatal crash. Sí.
Platicaban también los vecinos del área de que en esa bajada hay coches que pierden control, que son conocidos desde el área, gente ajena.
Eso es muy cierto, porque si uno no está pendiente y está con el teléfono o esas condiciones hace que esto ocurre con más frecuencia de lo normal, en ese lugar en particular, por la bajada y por la curva. No, no.
Did he give any indication of where he was coming from or heading to?
Well, he was definitely heading northbound on Hawthorne. Yes. El vehículo estaba destrozado por el exterior, pero el interior, la cabina estaba más o menos intacto y eso permitió que él sobreviviera ese accidente horrífico.
¿Puede decirnos si tenía las piernas quebradas o algo?
Tenía heridas en las dos piernas y heridas serias, pero no puedo decir más que eso.
¿Cuál es la razón que me están operando?
Eso es pregunta para los médicos. How's that?
It's the Rolling Hills Estate sign that's right there.
That he actually struck the first one going northbound, and that was on the center median. That was one of the first thing that he made contact with.
I know you said he was going northbound. Do we know where he was coming from at the time?
Not to my knowledge. No.
There's some reports that he was seen speeding earlier in the day. Have you heard those? Will you be conducting any other interviews following up on those?
That'll be up to traffic investigators and the relevancy.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Sheriff, can you say that speed was a factor in this?
Well, like every accident in that area, when it's downhill on a curve, you know, the speed, the vehicle code 22350 says unsafe speed for driving conditions. Typically on an accident, when it's a factor, that is one of the sections that is cited. And sometimes just because that's the posted speed limit, if there's a wet road, for example, that doesn't mean your speed limit is fixed there. You actually have to slow down even lower than that for the conditions of the road. So downhill on a curve is something that it's a lesson for everyone. You got to be aware of this.
The speed is a factor. And then if you could, can you just kind of paint the picture for us again? Because I know you answered the question, but just some clarity. He's coming down off of the hill. Speed, we think, is a factor. What's the first thing he hits when he loses control and goes over the hill? Can you kind of walk us through the sequence of events there?
From what I understand, the first thing was when he made contact with the center median, it would be the welcome to Rolling Hills Estate sign.
Sheriff, you took.
And that's in the center median. There's actually two signs. He hit the first one, the southernmost of those two signs, and then he winds up going across southbound lanes into the brush on the other side.
And he hits a tree, is that correct?
Yes, there's a tree about 8-inch stump, and that one was sheared.
Sheriff, you talked about the fact that he communicated to you. Can you describe to us his pain threshold at the time? This is a man who has to be rushed into surgery today, and his legs are damaged. Was he in shock? Was he in tears? Was he in excruciating pain? How can you describe his reaction to those who first go?
I would leave that up to Chief Osby on that one.
Generic question.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Once again, Daryl Osby, Fire Chief, Los Angeles County Fire Department. I can't respond to the specifics of Tiger Woods. I mean, some of those questions are personal and need to be released from him or whomever's representing him. The only thing I can tell you from my experience of working in public safety for the past almost 4 decades, that anytime you're involved in a single vehicle accident like this with rollover and that level of damage and broken legs and lacerations, that you're going to be in severe pain.
What was your concern then, Chief, when he was injured and you're transporting him? How concerned were those paramedics to get him to the hospital in a certain amount of time?
The fact of the matter is that he was a serious condition, but he was stable enough to transport to a trauma center. If the injuries are more dramatic and they couldn't control an airway, then they would have transported him to the nearest facility. But the fact that he was stable enough to be transported to a hospital farther away, which was the most appropriate hospital to be transported for because of the nature of the injuries, the nature of the incident says that it was a very serious injury. He met trauma center criteria, but he wasn't so serious that he needed to be transported to the nearest hospital for immediate life-saving procedures.
Chief, there's an LA County fire captain who says that he was able to stand as they assisted him out of the vehicle. Is there any truth to this idea that he was able to stand?
I cannot respond to that statement. I don't know.
I will.
Chief, just to clarify, is he still at that same trauma center now, or has he been transferred anywhere else?
It's my understanding that he's still at the Harbor UCLA Hospital, and no statement has been allowed for release yet. To be released yet.
Actually, before Deputy Gonzalez was actually the first deputy on scene, so he can perhaps clarify some of the questions that you may have. Go ahead, Deputy.
Good afternoon. I'm Deputy Gonzalez. I'm assigned to Lomita Sheriff Station. I'm the handling Deputy Carlos Gonzalez. I was the first unit on scene, and I'm the handling deputy for this current traffic collision.
Deputy Gonzalez, could you speak to that question? There's an LA County fire captain who says that Tiger Woods was able to stand as they assisted him out of the vehicle. Is there any truth to the idea that he was able to stand?
Unfortunately, Mr. Woods was not able to stand under his own power. Our partners at LA County Fire were able to extricate him from the vehicle, and they put him onto a backboard. When I arrived on scene, Mr. Woods was seated in the driver's seat. I made contact with him, and I ensured that he was able to speak to me. At that time, he seemed that as though he was still calm and lucid. I made the determination that it would be safer to wait for LA County Fire to help remove him instead of trying to remove him myself. I kept Mr. Woods calm until LA County Fire arrived on scene.
What did you do to keep him calm, Deputy?
I spoke to him. I asked.
Conversation. Can you share it with us, please?
I asked him what his name was. He told me his name was Tiger, and at that moment, I immediately recognized him. I asked him if he knew where he was, what time of day, just to make sure he was oriented. He seemed as though he was lucid and calm.
Was he concerned about his injuries?
He didn't seem concerned of his injuries at the time, which is not uncommon in traffic collisions. Many times people tend to be in shock. It's a traumatic experience, so it's not uncommon for people to be focused on unimportant things, or even if they are in pain, they might not feel it until much later.
So was the incident caught on your body cam?
Yes, my body camera was used per department policy.
Okay.
Deputy, in the photos of the airbags, there's blood. We're trying to figure out everything that we're seeing. Did you see any injuries on anywhere other than the legs as you were just assessing him on site?
I did observe injuries. I can't speak as to the nature of the injuries. I'm not a trained medical professional, so I can't speak to that. What I can say is that he was injured, and he was successfully removed and taken to the hospital.
And you saw that he had a seatbelt on?
He was wearing a seatbelt.
Did he have lacerations as well as the leg?
If he did, I was not able to see them due to his clothing.
You've seen a lot of car accidents. Do you think this type of car saved his life, or are you thinking like a cheaper car, like wouldn't have had to get him?
As mentioned by the sheriff, that specific stretch of roadway is one of our trouble spots. Our locals in Rancho Palos Verdes and Rolling Hills Estates know that it's a hot spot for traffic collisions as well as speed. In my experience as a deputy who is traffic trained and works a traffic car, I have seen many collisions. The nature of his vehicle, the fact that he was wearing a seatbelt, I would say that it greatly increased the likelihood that it saved his life.
Is this the worst accident you've seen on that stretch?
I will say no, because I've been doing this for a while and I've seen fatal traffic collisions. So I will say that it's very fortunate that Mr. Woods was able to come out of this alive.
Deputy Gonzalez, this is an accident-prone stretch, correct? We've seen a number of accidents on this specific stretch. Is that correct?
This stretch of roadway is downhill. It's sweeping. Speeds there. The speed limit is 45 miles per hour. Myself, when I'm doing speed enforcement, I will sometimes catch people going 80 plus miles per hour. So it's more of a thing that people see a nice stretch of road and maybe they're not watching their speedometer, or maybe they're in a hurry.
During your conversations with Tiger, were you ever concerned in the time that you spent with him of his pain threshold, or that he was going to lose consciousness at all?
At the moment that I spoke to Mr. Woods, I was able to determine that it would have been safer for me to wait for LA County Fire because his condition seemed stable, and I did not want to risk further injuring him by trying to remove him myself.
There was something floating around about like a bystander who went in and helped extricate him. So can you tell if there's any of that?
So the neighbor that lives behind heard the collision and came down and was the one that directed me to the vehicle. As was indicated by the sheriff, there was another unrelated traffic collision that occurred several feet down the roadway, which I believe was due to people trying to look. And that also kind of distracted from what was occurring, because he was several feet off the roadway, so I think most of the attention that people were focused on was on the roadway.
One more question. Deputy, can you describe what the thing looked like inside the car? Did he have that space to go around? How did the passenger side look and how did the back?
As indicated by the sheriff, the interior passenger compartment of the vehicle was intact. The airbags did deploy successfully. Again, he was wearing his seatbelt. I think this also kind of speaks to the marvel of modern automobiles, in that they're much safer than they've ever been previously.
Deputy, any idea how many times the vehicle flipped?
Well, we don't know that at this time. Sí. Sí, ¿cuál es la pregunta? Sí, cuando llegué, me fijé adentro del vehículo y le pregunté al señor cuál era su nombre para ver si podía platicar conmigo. Me dijo su nombre, es cuando lo reconocí. En ese tiempo hice la decisión que sería la mejor decisión de esperar a los bomberos llegar para poder sacarlo del vehículo, porque en ese tiempo sus heridas no se veían tan serios que se me hizo tan importante para sacarlo en ese momento y arriesgar posiblemente dañarlo más.
Mencionó que algunas personas estaban diciendo que se había podido estar de pie, lo cual
no, cuando lo sacaron los bomberos, lo pusieron en un stretcher y así se lo llevaron.
Entonces, ¿sí portaba el cinturón de seguridad?
Sí, tuvo puesto el cinturón de seguridad.
Español, por favor, español.
¿Alguna herida en la cabeza?
Eso no sé, no soy doctor ni soy profesional médico, entonces no puedo hablar sobre sus heridas.
Pero tú que lo viste, tenía sangre en la cara.
De eso no puedo hablar.
Lo que sí mencionabas es que era común en esa área que la velocidad, muchas veces las personas no se dieran cuenta que tan rápido iba.
Es una zona que es muy común ver carros que van en exceso de velocidad.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for coming. This concludes our press conference.
So you've just been listening into that press conference from the LA County Sheriff's Department. And of course, we're talking about a very public figure, and yet privacy laws still in place. And yet we have learned quite a bit from that press conference. Just to give you some of the recaps there, one of the deputies who did arrive said that Tiger was not able to stand on his own power, but he described him as being calm and lucid. He is now said to be in serious condition. The sheriff also talked about how there were no skid marks, no signs of braking. We've learned also that he was wearing a seatbelt, and that greatly increased the likelihood that it saved his life. The sheriff actually saying inside the vehicle, it remained relatively intact, which allowed him to survive what otherwise could have been a fatal crash. He was driving a Genesis GV80, which has 10 airbags inside and advanced safety systems. Witnesses have said that they believe that Tiger Woods is lucky to be alive. Also, the sheriff saying there that no evidence of impairment based on the observations that they saw on the scene. But again, the investigation continues, could take from several days to several weeks. I want to go back out to Cana just to get a sense of what you're hearing.
Yeah, Lindsay, I thought it was really interesting what they talked about is that being a problematic area for car crashes. And we see things like that throughout Southern California. We call them these canyon roads where you can really get going fast and it can be very dangerous. So this is clearly an area that law enforcement is familiar with when it comes to crashes. And it does seem early on in their investigation that he was perhaps traveling at a high rate of speed. And I also thought it was really telling what Deputy Gonzalez said there, as you mentioned about him, being conscious, being calm, being lucid, wearing his seatbelt. And that's why he decided to wait so that the fire department could extricate him from the car. And he was in stable condition, so that's why they were able to bring him here to this trauma hospital as opposed to the actual closest hospital to the crash. So they said this is in fact where he should be considering his very serious injuries. I even heard it mentioned as 2 broken legs, so he definitely has serious injuries to both his legs, undergoing surgery here right now. And Lindsay, as we know, Tiger Woods is more than a golfer. I mean, he's a celebrity. He is a part of pop culture. And we are seeing celebrities and golfers reaching out to him on Twitter, sending their thoughts and prayers. And we heard from the PGA itself saying that Tiger is in our prayers, and he has our full support as he recovers. Again, he was here in California to host a PGA Tour event. I mean, my goodness, he has won 82 PGA Tour events in his career. So this is a man who is beloved and even maybe hinted at a possible comeback after his 5th back surgery. And also, I want to mention, Lindsay, so Tiger Woods won 15 Masters. including the 2019 Masters. The only person that has won more than that is Jack Nicklaus, and he tweeted out saying that he and his wife heard about Tiger's accident. Like everyone else, we're deeply concerned. We want to offer him our heartfelt support and prayers at this difficult time. Please join us in wishing Tiger a successful surgery and all the best for a full recovery. So clearly, Lindsay, all of this is far from over. His recovery is far from over, as is that investigation.
And potentially his return to golf still a major question. Kana, as you were mentioning, of course, we're seeing a major outpouring of support for Tiger. Fellow golfer Justin Thomas got emotional earlier today after he heard about the accident. Let's take a listen.
I'm sick to my stomach. You know, it hurts to see one of your, now my closest friends, you know, get in an accident. And man, I just hope he's all right. Just worried for his kids, you know. I'm sure they're struggling.
Kana, I want to go back to you. Just any other additional reaction from Tiger Woods' friends and fans?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Lindsay. So a lot of people here, as again, it's just swarmed with media, but a lot of people here at the hospital weren't quite aware why we were all here. And once we tell them, people are concerned. They don't want him to be hurt. They don't want him to have to suffer through this. And so you're seeing people, as it gets out that he's at this hospital, you're sort of seeing people drawn to the area, drawn to the hospital, you know, just to sort of send their thoughts and prayers, as is the staff here as well.
Kana Whitworth, our thanks to you. And once again, Tiger Woods in the hospital tonight following a serious car accident. We'll have much more tonight on ABC News Live Prime coming up in just minutes at 7 p.m. We'll see you then.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
Admit it, these days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America in the afternoon?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC. It's all about you.
Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, Michael Strahan. Wake up with America's #1 most watched morning show. ABC's
Good Morning America.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
ABC News honored winner for the second straight year with the Edward R. Murrow Award for Overall Excellence in Television. ABC News, America's #1 news source. Friday nights, 9/8 Central. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues, The Hunt, True Crime, 2020. Friday nights, 9/8 Central on ABC.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Now, when it matters most, the straightforward facts. ABC News is America's #1 news. #1 in the morning, #1 in the evening, with America's most watched newscast. #1 in late night versus the competition. The #1 news magazine on Friday nights. #1 in politics across this historic election versus the competition. The #1 daytime talk show. And #1 in streaming news. ABC News is America's #1 news.
once I put the little boot on him and he did this little jump and then he was running around and climbing, I actually cried. It's the best thing that ever happened, and I would do absolutely anything for this boy. He's really worth it.
Well, the foot, I know Marley, and Marley was telling me at one stage that they have a little koala here at Friends of the Koala in Lismore, and he was born without a foot. And the next time I saw Marley, I thought to myself, surely I can have a go at manufacturing something for him, because that's what I do. I make dentures for people.
I was sceptical, but geez, he came through with the goods. So no, you wouldn't think your local dentist would be the one to, help save the triumph. Got it?
In 2019, we applied for the title of the world's largest snow maze, which we got in February. And this year, just with COVID and everything, we wanted to make it bigger. And so this year, it's about 91% bigger than the world's largest title that we hold now.
Menggunakan helikopter merupakan pilihan terbaik untuk melepasliarkan orang hutan di masa pandemi ini. Ditambah lagi lokasi pelepasliaran hari ini itu di hutan lindung Bukit Batikap, yang apabila kita lakukan dengan jalur darat itu memakan waktu selama 3 hari dan juga akan melalui